Hey, wide awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories.
I swear it felt perfect at first, like suspiciously perfect. The kind where you start thinking this might finally be the one date that doesn't spiral into chaos. She had this warm vibe in her messages, not overly flirty, not dry either, just balanced. Little jokes, quick replies, random voice notes that made me feel like she was actually interested, instead of just bored. When she suggested a cozy bistro near the canal, I didn't even hesitate. I said yes straight away. I put in actual effort too, not the lazy last-minute fit. I wanted to show her I was serious. The whole walk there felt like the build-up to something good. I even caught myself smiling for no reason on the way, which is embarrassing to admit but true. She was already seated when I arrived, phone beside her, drink ordered, waving like she'd been waiting for me specifically. First green flag. Her smile was bright, eyes soft, the type that makes you want to lean in closer and forget the rest of the world exists for a bit. We hugged, sat down, and the conversation started flowing like we'd known each other longer than a few days. We talked about random stuff, childhood memories, embarrassing school moments, stupid trends we hated. She laughed at my jokes and I laughed at hers. Everything felt easy, natural, not forced. But then I noticed something small. Every few minutes, her hand would dip slightly under the table. Not enough to draw attention, but enough for me to register the motion. I assumed she was just adjusting her bag or responding to a quick message. Normal stuff. Everyone checks their phone sometimes, I get it. I ignored it, kept engaging, kept enjoying the vibe. But it kept happening. Her eyes would flick down for half a second, then back up at me with that same friendly smile. She'd nod as I spoke, laugh at the right moments, but her fingers kept moving subtly like she was texting while still looking me straight in the eyes. My stomach tightened slightly. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin a good moment over something petty. Maybe she's just busy. Maybe someone needs her. I kept telling myself to relax. Then the angle shifted. The way she tilted her wrist changed, like she forgot about the table height and let the phone peek out just a little too much. And I saw it. The familiar app layout, the swipe screen, profile pictures sliding side to side. My brain paused for a second before fully processing what I was seeing. She wasn't replying to someone. She was actively swiping, on the same app we matched on, while smiling at me. I felt something heavy sink deep into my chest. Not just disappointment, but that slow realization that I wasn't important enough to even deserve basic presence. I forced a small laugh like nothing was wrong and leaned back slightly, eyes casually drifting downward again just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. There it was again. A new face popped up. She swiped right with confidence, then tapped a little heart icon. Match. My throat tightened. She looked up at me and smiled wider, like the warmth should cancel out what she just did, like multitasking people with standard ground. My thoughts spiraled fast now. Was I not enough? Was I just filling time until someone she preferred replied? Was this whole date just a background activity while she scrolled for upgrades? And the worst part was how normal she acted while doing it. She kept nodding while I spoke, reacting perfectly to the conversation cue while lining up other options at the same time. Like I wasn't a person beside her, but a placeholder occupying a seat until she found a better fit. I tested it. I paused mid-sentence. She still smiled. But she didn't notice the silence, because her eyes were glued to that glowing screen under the table. That's when the chill settled fully. This wasn't a small distraction. This was deliberate disrespect. I cleared my throat slightly and shifted in my seat. She glanced up, acting like she hadn't just matched with another guy 5 seconds before. The audacity almost impressed me. She asked if everything was okay. I nodded and said yeah, but my voice didn't carry the same warmth anymore. I felt flat now, dulled, like every genuine laugh earlier had suddenly been downgraded to noise. She continued talking, but her hand dipped again. Swipe, tap, match. It felt like watching someone scroll through menu options while I sat right in front of them like a dish already served. I didn't want to cause a scene. I hate confrontation. But the silence inside me started growing louder than her words. My brain kept replaying the little movements, the subtle secret swipes, the casual way she acted like it meant nothing. What made it worse was that the rest of the date still felt perfect on the surface. She was charming, attentive, asked me questions about my life, made comments that felt thoughtful. But all of it now felt hollow, like lines read from a script while someone else controlled the real narrative. I leaned forward slightly and caught one more glimpse. Another match notification popped up. She smiled at the screen, then smiled at me. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't on a date. I was competing without even entering the contest. I pushed my chair back slightly and paused, giving her a look that made her finally lift her phone away from the table. She tried acting confused, like she didn't know why my energy shifted. I calmly said I wasn't feeling it anymore. She looked surprised, like genuinely shocked I wasn't cool with sharing attention. She tried brushing it off, saying she was just bored and scrolling. But the scroll wasn't news. It was faces. Fresh options. People who didn't even know she had someone sitting right in front of her. I didn't ask more questions. I didn't argue. I don't waste energy on someone who makes me feel like background noise. I stood up slowly, grabbed my jacket, and nodded once before stepping away. The cafe music hummed around us, but I felt completely detached from it now. As I walked toward the door, I felt nothing dramatic. No anger explosion. No heartbreak. Just that quiet understanding that sometimes people don't even try to pretend they respect you anymore. My phone buzzed almost instantly once I left, her name lighting up my screen. Excuses. Explanations. Justifying the behavior like I should understand. I didn't open any of it. Block. I walked home with slower steps, head down, letting the cool night air calm the tension I didn't realize built up. Every reflection in shop windows now reminded me how easy it is to be present physically but not emotionally. And yeah, I won't pretend it didn't sting, because it did. Not because I loved her, but because I gave a moment of real attention to someone who treated it like filler. I kept thinking back to her smiling at me while choosing someone else in real time. That image stayed stuck. The dual expression. The multitasking manipulation. Some people scroll when they're bored, some scroll when they're unsure. But scrolling mid-date, that hits different. By the time I reached the road I live on, I realized something clearly. I don't mind someone keeping options open. Dating is messy. I get that. But the second someone stops treating you as a person and starts treating you like a waiting room, that's when you walk. And that's exactly what I did. What hurt most wasn't that she matched with someone else. It was how easily she smiled while doing it. I didn't clock how tense he looked until we were already sitting down and I had my drink in front of me. The place was meant to be chill, this little street bar with warm lights and mismatched chairs, somewhere that felt easy and low effort. He picked it, said it was one of his favorite spots to unwind, and I believed him because he sounded genuine over text. Not too try-hard, not empty either. Just calm and polite and a bit awkward in a sweet way. When I walked in, he was already there, scrolling on his phone, jaw tight, fingers tapping slightly too fast like something was bothering him. The second he looked up and saw me, he forced a smile that didn't fully reach his eyes. I noticed it immediately but brushed it off, because first dates are weird and nerves happen. We hugged, sat down, ordered drinks, and started talking. He tried joking about random stuff, like how bad the weather's been and how weird dating feels these days. I nodded along, but his phone kept lighting up on the table. Not normal notifications. Repeated calls from the same unknown number. He kept declining them fast, eyes flickering with irritation. The first few times I ignored it, but when the third call came through within 5 minutes, I raised an eyebrow. He laughed it off, said it was just someone being annoying. His tone sounded casual, but his hands tightened around his glass. We tried moving on with conversation, but I could feel this invisible pressure hanging over him. Every buzz from his phone made his shoulders stiffen slightly. The screen would light up with the same caller ID, and his jaw would clench harder each time. Eventually, he turned the phone face down, like hiding it might stop reality from catching him. But it didn't. Halfway through the date, the calls grew more intense. Longer rings, back-to-back attempts, even vibration coming through the table. Something about the energy shifted, and my stomach started feeling uneasy too, like I was somehow sitting next to unresolved chaos. He excused himself to step outside for air, saying he needed a minute. I watched him through the window as he paced slightly, phone pressed to his ear, shaking his head like he was being warned or threatened or cornered. His posture screamed stress. When he walked back in, his face had lost color slightly. He pulled up a weak smile, said everything was fine, but my gut didn't believe him for a second. We sat down again, but before either of us could even settle, the door swung open hard. Two men walked in. They weren't part of the vibe, not our regulars, not casual visitors. They had purpose in their eyes and was aimed straight at him. My date froze where he sat. His eyes widened slightly before quickly dropping back down like he hoped they wouldn't notice him if he didn't move. They noticed him anyway. Walked straight over without hesitation. The entire bar went quiet in that strange way when everyone senses something is about to go down. Even the music felt background now. The two men stood beside our table, their eyes locked on his face with something heavy behind them. Anger, frustration, protective energy. They started speaking fast and firm, not shouting, but intense enough that everyone around heard enough to understand pieces. Words like sister, lies, money, promises. My chest tightened. He stood abruptly, trying to calm them down, glancing at me like he didn't want me hearing any of this. But the words already landed. They accused him of playing their sister emotionally, building fake feelings, taking money from her while saying he wanted a future, disappearing for days, resurfacing with sweet lines, draining her before ghosting, romance scamming. The phrase bounced in my head over and over. This guy I had been chatting with for weeks, the one who sent thoughtful messages, the one I thought felt awkward but harmless, the one sitting opposite me holding a drink and trying to seem normal. He was doing the same routine to multiple women. They pulled their phones out and started showing proof. Long chains of messages, voice notes, confession-style texts where he mentioned needing support, needing help, needing just small transfers until things worked out. They said their sister had been crying for weeks over him, isolating, embarrassed, convinced he'd return when he never truly intended to, and the threatening calls he kept ignoring. Those were them trying to reach him, the whole time. My stomach twisted further the more I pieced it together. The strange tension, the deflection, the calm fakeness, the forced smile. None of it was accidental. He wasn't unlucky. He wasn't misunderstood. He was using emotional vulnerability for convenience and profit. The two men didn't attack him. They didn't cause a scene that turned violent. They just stood there confronting him with honesty and anger soaked in real grief. The kind of anger you hold when someone messes with your family's heart. He stammered attempts to explain himself, tried shifting blame, tried minimizing, but nothing erased the evidence sitting right in front of all of us. His eyes kept darting toward me, like he didn't want me to associate him with that behavior. But it was too late. I already saw through the layers. This wasn't a small misunderstanding. This was a pattern. Staff hovered awkwardly nearby, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of it. Other customers watched silently. The entire bar paused in collective awareness. The two men said their piece and eventually stepped back, warning him to never contact their sister again. Their tone didn't carry empty threat. It carried finality. He sat back down slowly, breathing unevenly now, avoiding eye contact with me. The silence stretched long and uncomfortable. And then he tried to act normal. Like we could still continue the date. Like I hadn't just heard he manipulated a woman's emotions and finances without hesitation. I didn't even know what to feel at that point. Part of me felt sick. Part of me felt furious. But mostly I felt dumb for trusting the soft tone he used to build emotional access. I stood up quietly, grabbing my bag and coat. He tried speaking, quick words, rushed explanations, more excuses layered over what already unfolded, but I didn't engage with any of it. I didn't need a summary. I didn't need closure. I just needed out. As I walked toward the door, I felt every set of eyes follow the movement, but I didn't care. The fresh air outside hit my face, and for the first time in that night, I could breathe properly again. My phone started buzzing straight away, his name flashing repeatedly. Denial messages. Sympathy-gathering words. Manipulative apologies. I didn't read any of it. Lock. Done. I walked away with footsteps heavier than usual but clearer in direction. My chest still tight, but my instincts fully validated. That creeping discomfort I felt when the phone kept ringing. My body warning me before logic caught up. I kept thinking about the sister. How she probably believed him word for word. How he probably told her the same sweet things he told me. And it shook me how easily he could shift from victim energy to charm to desperation to calm again like it was routine. When I finally reached home, I sat on my bed in silence for a while, letting the weight of what happened settle. Not crying, not raging, just realizing how dangerous emotional manipulation can look disguised as kindness. This wasn't just a bad date. This was someone feeding off other people's hearts for gain. And the fact I almost trusted that, yeah, that one stayed with me. I don't think I've ever felt that specific kind of dread before, the kind where your stomach drops but your brain hasn't fully caught up yet. The night started normal, maybe even hopeful. She had this playful energy through messages, like she actually enjoyed the chat instead of just replying to pastime. She joked, asked questions, sent voice notes. I started thinking maybe this one would finally be calm, normal, not messy. She suggested a quirky cafe that stayed open late, one of those places with neon signs and fake plants hanging everywhere. I liked the idea. It felt relaxed, low pressure, somewhere you go to talk instead of scroll your phone in silence. So I showed up early, sat by the window, and waited. When she walked in, she looked exactly like her photos. Same smile, same soft eyes, same carefully casual outfit that looked effortless but clearly planned. She spotted me, waved, and sat down like we'd known each other longer than a few days of app messages. I felt my guard go down slightly. The way she leaned forward when she laughed made it feel warmer than most first meets. We ordered drinks and started talking. Basic stuff at first, music tastes, weird stories, how awkward online dating gets sometimes. She laughed at things that weren't even that funny, but in a way that still felt genuine. I started relaxing, sitting back, thinking maybe I'd overthink too much and this was finally okay. But then the odd little details crept in. Her phone stayed on the table the whole time, screen facing outward, not casually placed, but angled a little too perfectly. Every time I moved my hand, I noticed the camera lens never pointed down. It stayed lifted, facing me. I brushed it off at first. Some people just forget where their phone sits. But then I noticed something else. Every time I reacted to something, laughed, smiled, hesitated, her eyes would briefly flick down to her screen, then back up at me. It felt like I wasn't being spoken to. It felt like I was being monitored. She suggested we switch seats for better lighting by the wall mural, said it would look nicer. That word looked stuck in my head longer than it should have. We moved, and again her phone shifted position, still perfectly angled in my direction. I tried focusing on the conversation, but my comfort faded into unease. It started to feel performative, like she wasn't just talking to me, but curating reactions. Then it happened. A faint echo of sound slipped through the small speaker on her phone. Not clear enough to make out words, but distinct enough to know it wasn't part of the cafe music. Quick laughter, muffled voices. Digital, not real life. My heartbeat spiked. She tilted her phone slightly, maybe not realizing I could hear anything, and that's when I saw the screen. A tiny streamy interface, comments flicking past, laughing emojis, usernames popping up rapidly, a viewer count icon in the corner, and a line that made my stomach twist violently. Why he looked so confused, lol. The world went blank for a second. She wasn't just recording. She was broadcasting. Me. Live. I froze, staring at the screen as more comments poured in. Ask him that question again. He looks nervous. Do something dramatic. My face burned instantly, not just from embarrassment, but from the realization that this entire interaction was never real. I wasn't a date. I wasn't someone she wanted to know. I was entertainment. Content. A reaction piece for strangers sitting behind screens. She noticed my stare and her smile faltered slightly, but she didn't shut it down immediately. Didn't apologize. Didn't even explain. She just kept talking like normal, trying to keep the stream rolling. All while strangers commented on my expressions like I was part of a prank channel. My hands were shaking now. I asked her what this was, but she brushed it off too casually, saying it was just for fun, just people online, nothing serious. But the comments said otherwise. People telling her to make me react more, to confuse me, to push poking questions. I felt sick. This wasn't lighthearted. This was planned humiliation. She only managed to set this up. Every message, every voice note, every laugh, all content gathering. I watched as someone typed "make him notice," and she angled the phone slightly higher, fully exposing the screen like I should accept it as normal. That's when I stood up. Slowly at first, deliberately, the entire cafe suddenly feeling too small to contain what I felt. People nearby glanced over, sensing the shift. She tried laughing like I was overreacting, like this was funny. Like she hadn't just invaded my personal moment and thrown it into a virtual crowd for clout and cheap validation. I didn't say anything clever. I didn't shout. I didn't cause a scene. I just shook my head, grabbed my jacket, and walked away from the table. As I headed for the door, I caught one last glimpse of her screen reflecting in the window. "You leaving, Mom?" That was actually savage. Rate this 10 out of 10. My chest felt hollow. I stepped out into the cool air, the noise of the cafe fading behind me, and mutants of internet laughter still echoing in my head. My phone buzzed. Her name. Messages piling up already. Saying I was taking it too serious. Saying it was just content. Saying I should relax. I didn't respond. Block. I walked a few streets down before even slowing my pace. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the world felt sharper, less safe. Not because of danger, but because of how easily someone thought they could turn another human being into a punchline for strangers. I kept thinking about how she studied my reactions, how she adjusted things to get certain responses, how every moment of apparent connection was staged for views. When I got home, I sat in my bed longer than I usually would, staring at the floor, trying to shake the mix of humiliation and anger clinging to my skin. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt violated. Like privacy itself had been stolen without me even realizing. The worst part wasn't that people laughed. It was that she never saw anything wrong with it. Like empathy just switched off when numbers and views felt more important. Some people date for connection. Some date for chaos. And some just chase attention no matter who gets trampled beneath it.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
I should have clocked it earlier, but I was too busy trying to believe this one could be different. He had this soft way of messaging, not over the top, not boring either. Just enough charm to make me feel like this wasn't another random swipe that would fade out by tomorrow. When he said he booked a restaurant for our first meet, I actually smiled at my phone. That never happens. Most guys just say, "Where you want to go," and leave the effort hanging. He kept saying it was a quiet place, tucked away, romantic vibes, proper date energy. He even sent a pin location and everything. So I got dressed properly, not rushed, not half-hearted, thinking, wow, maybe I finally found someone who plans. The closer I got to the location, the more strange it felt. The streets were quieter than expected. No clusters of people. No warm glow of open windows. No chatter spilling out from a busy dining spot. Just dim streetlights and rows of silent buildings like everything shut down hours ago. I stood outside the pinned location and felt confusion sink straight into my chest. This wasn't a restaurant. It was an abandoned building. Shutters down. Windows boarded. Faded sign hanging crooked above the entrance with half the letters missing. No lights. No movement. No sign of life. I checked my phone again, thinking maybe I had it wrong. Nope. Same pin, same address. Same instructions saying meet at the front. My heart started racing lightly, but I told myself to stay calm. Maybe it recently closed and he didn't know. People make mistakes. I didn't want to assume the worst straight away. He messaged saying he was just around the corner and to wait by the door. I felt uneasy but refused to walk away yet. I hate canceling without seeing things through. 2 minutes later, he appeared. Same face from the pictures. Casual clothes. Slight smile. He waved and acted like this was all exactly as planned. I asked about the place, joking that it looked like a ghost spot, and he laughed it off saying it was a private booking type situation. Like some hush-hush place people don't normally know about. That answer didn't sit right, but I walked closer anyway, curiosity mixed with that stubborn need not to appear dramatic. He pulled at the door like he'd arrived before staff unlocked it, then shrugged and said he'd expected it to be open. His energy felt off now. No longer relaxed. More restless, like he was trying to steer the direction rather than enjoy the moment. He suggested we walk around the back while they get things sorted. That's when the chill hit deeper. I glanced behind him and noticed something I hadn't before. A dark alley leading around the building. Bins stacked, shadows heavier, silence thicker. It didn't feel like a cute detour. It felt wrong. My body hesitated, but he was already walking and gesturing for me to follow. I stepped slowly, heart picking up pace, the sound of my own breathing becoming louder than the environment around us. Halfway down the alley, he reached into his jacket and pulled out something that made my stomach drop. A mask. Not the harmless kind either. Plain, dark, low quality, the type you don't casually carry at dinner. He turned slightly away from me, adjusting it in his hand, and that's when I really felt my instincts scream. This wasn't a date. This was something else entirely. Before I could react, he suddenly crouched down and motioned like someone else was rushing toward us. Footsteps echoed behind the building, but no one else was there. Just a hollow bounce of sound off concrete walls. He started acting frantic, like someone barged at him, like something dramatic was happening and I was meant to play along. He pretended to pace, muttering rush things, glancing around at invisible figures. My pulse went wild. He then pointed vaguely down the road and made movements suggesting we were being targeted, like he was painting a fake scene into reality. I couldn't hear anyone. I couldn't see anyone, yet he was performing panic. He shoved the mask toward me like I should grab it, like some twisted, scripted moment was meant to unfold. That's when the truth hit. He was staging a fake robbery. I wasn't a guest. I was a prop. Someone to witness it, someone to testify later, someone who could confirm his version of events if anything came into question, someone innocent enough to validate the chaos he was fabricating. My body froze for 1 second too long, the world narrowing down to the way his eyes flicked between me and the empty alley like he was building some scene from a low-budget drama. He pointed toward my bag and gestured urgently like someone was stealing it. No one was there. No threat. Just him imagining the situation into existence. I stepped back immediately, shaking my head, and suddenly fear flooded in properly. Not confusion. Not unease. Actual fear. This wasn't playful. This was calculated. He wanted a narrative where we looked like victims. Or worse. He stepped closer, urging me to act frantic, to look scared, to go along with the script he silently built. And that's when I realized there was no cute explanation for this. No apology that could undo it. No misunderstanding. I turned away instinctively and began moving toward the street end of the alley, my heartbeat slamming so hard my ears buzzed. He called out behind me, trying to redirect, trying to regain control over whatever fantasy he was trying to create. But I didn't slow down. Once I hit the brighter pavement under a flickering lamp, the air felt sharper, clearer, more real. I pulled my phone out instantly and started walking away fast, not even caring if he followed. He kept messaging, my screen lighting up repeatedly as I walked further from the closed building anymore. Excuses pouring in. Explanations that sounded urgent but hollow. Claiming it was a joke, a scenario thing. Something he thought would be funny. Funny. Staging fear. Pretending danger existed. Involving me in whatever risk scenario he invented. Nothing about that was even slightly funny. I blocked him within seconds. No pause. No emotion. Just pure self-preservation. When I finally reached a safe part of the road where people passed normally and shops remained open, I stopped for a second to catch my breath. My hands were visibly shaking now, adrenaline still buzzing through my system. I looked back once toward the distance. No sign of him. No movement. Just that silent building sitting like it had trapped something ugly in its absence. And that's what unsettled me most. How casually he walked toward chaos like it was entertainment. How confident he felt pulling someone into a situation that could have spiraled into something way worse. How easily he shifted from charming messaging to manipulating what reality looked like. It wasn't breakup sad. It wasn't awkward regret. It was the kind of unsettling feeling that makes you replay every message you ignore the signs in. When I got home, I locked my door and sat down heavily on the edge of my bed, letting the silence settle. My mind played it back over and over. The empty alley, the mask, the performative panic, the twisted idea that he planned this. This wasn't a bad date. This was someone trying to create a fake crime scene and drag me into it like a character cast for his personal drama. And the fact I showed up trusting him all made my skin crawl more than anything else. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt numb and relieved that instinct had kicked in before things crossed an even darker line. Some people date for connection, some date for thrill, some date for control. But some people just want to play God with other people's reality. I knew something was wrong the moment my brain clicked before my heart even had time to catch up. That weird pause you get when reality lags for a second. I had just sat down across from her, smiling politely, pretending this was a normal first date, when my mind went blank and then suddenly lit up all at once. I had seen her before. Not in real life, not through the app, not through mutuals. Online. Everywhere. The date itself had started off calm enough. She suggested a casual dessert spot near the edge of town, the type that tries to look cute with pastel walls and soft lighting. She arrived slightly late, apologized in a sweet way, and brushed her hair behind her ear like someone who knew exactly how to present themselves. She looked just like her photos. Polished yet effortless, the type people would call a catch. We ordered waffles and drinks and slipped into light conversation. She talked about her day, her job, random things she found funny. Everything felt okay on the surface, but something about her felt rehearsed, like she already knew the rhythm of first impressions a little too well. Then it hit me. The angle of her face, the way her lip curls when she laughs, the faint mole near her jawline. My stomach dropped. My brain dragged up a memory I didn't even try to look for. A grainy video, shaky camera, shared over and over on social feeds a few months back. The caption something messy about someone being exposed for sneaking around with multiple people. People zooming in, laughing, judging, resharing, making jokes. And her face was right there in the center. Hidden camera mounted somewhere awkward, her stepping out of dark corners, switching between different guys like it was a coordinated routine. Not even subtle, not even cautious, just slipping through buildings, meeting different partners within the same hours, thinking nobody would ever notice. I remember scrolling past it originally thinking that level of chaos could never be real, that people exaggerate online for clicks. But now she sat right in front of me, smiling, asking which toppings I preferred. And it clicked brutally slow. This wasn't a coincidence. This was the same person. My chest tightened as memories of the video played in flashes. Her glancing around nervously, checking if anyone was near, then pulling someone close behind a parked car. Then another cut. Another location. Another dude waiting nervously like he'd been begged to meet last minute. It had gone insanely viral for a week. People made jokes, reaction videos, memes, commentary, entire threads accusing her of running a parallel relationship maze. And here I was, sat opposite her, spooning whipped cream and pretending I didn't remember any of it. She probably thought the attention died down. That time erased it. That apps gave her a fresh reset. My eyes flicked to her phone resting on the table. Notifications lighting up, names popping up, quick lock screen flashes of messages coming in steady. She casually brushed the phone aside like it meant nothing. My head was loud now, trying to figure out whether to ignore it and run or stay long enough to confirm what I already knew. I decided to watch. The signs lined up painfully fast. She kept checking over her shoulder whenever someone walked past. She kept glancing toward the door like she expected interruptions. She laughed too quickly and touched her hair more than normal, like flirting was default mode on autopilot. Every time she looked back at me after scanning the room, she smiled wider than actual comfort allowed. My stomach felt hollow, not heartbroken, not jealous, just unsettled. This wasn't someone casually exploring options. This was someone who treated dating like a game of chess where all the pieces were real people. I subtly unlocked my phone under the table and typed a few words that I knew would bring back the memory. The search results appeared before I'd even finished typing. There it was. Same dim lighting, same coat, same nervous half smile from the video, same expression, same girl now pretending we were enjoying a cute chill dessert date. My hands felt colder all of a sudden. The comments rolled past too. People saying she was reckless, messy, that no one should date her, that she played everyone without care, that she had some obsession with attention. Reading that while sitting across from her felt surreal, like I stepped inside a rumor rather than hearing about one. She noticed my change of energy instantly, tilted her head slightly, and gave that concerned look, the one that tries to make someone feel safe again. But it didn't work on me now. Every charm tactic felt transparent. Without saying anything, I placed my phone gently on the table and angled it slightly just enough so her eyes would see what I was seeing. Her face changed immediately. Not confusion, not surprise. Recognition. Her pupils tightened for just a moment before the smile returned too quickly, like muscle memory kicked in to mask panic. I didn't need words to confirm it. Her silence said more than any excuse ever could. She tried acting casual, brushing it off with visible discomfort, pretending the screen was nothing important. But the tension around her shoulders told a different story. This wasn't gossip. This was her digital ghost resurfacing. She shifted in her seat, crossed her legs, and laughed nervously while scanning the room again. But I was already mentally 3 steps out of the situation. I wasn't there to interrogate or judge her publicly. I just needed distance from whatever emotional circus she operated. I packed my things slowly, calm on the surface but boiling inside. Not because of jealousy, because I realized I walked straight into someone who clearly plays games for thrill rather than connection. She tried reaching toward my arm slightly as if to keep me there, as if this was just a silly misunderstanding, but I gently pulled away without drama. And then I stood up. People glanced at us, curious but not invested enough to care. I didn't owe anyone a scene. I walked out without turning back, letting the door shut behind me with a dull, heavy thud. Outside, the night air felt sharper, grounded, cleaner, like I stepped back into a world that made sense again. My phone buzzed a few seconds later with her name plastered across the screen. Message after message trying to explain. Excuses stacked like shaky bricks barely standing. I didn't open any of it. Block. Silence. As I walked home, the streetlights flickered above, casting reflections across the pavement. My mind replayed the video one last time, how casual she looked slipping between partners like it was normal behavior, and now trying to recreate a normal narrative with me as if nothing about that past mattered. The more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. Not a chicken messy moment online, but how smooth she was with covering it up. How effortless she switched between roles, like reality itself could bend around to whatever she wanted. By the time I reached my door, I sat on the steps for a moment to let the last bit of tension drain from my chest. I didn't feel sad, just aware of how easily digital reputation can hide in plain sight until it walks directly in front of you. That night didn't break me. It just reminded me how quick attraction can turn hollow when truth appears uninvited. And honestly, I don't think she ever realized how close she came to repeating the same viral spiral again. Some people don't learn, they just rotate the cast. I didn't even want to go out that night, but somehow his energy pulled me in. He wasn't loud or overly confident, just steady in a way that felt calming. The type who replies on time and makes small jokes like he's trying to build comfort instead of chasing adrenaline. After a few days of back and forth, he suggested a quiet drink at a low-key pub near the high street. Not flashy, not intense. Just something casual to vibe and talk properly. That line stuck with me, so I agreed. I arrived first and picked a small table near the window where you could see life moving without feeling fully in it. When he walked in, he looked exactly like his pictures. Clean hoodie, soft smile, relaxed posture. That immediate relief swept through me because so many app meetups go sideways before hello. We sat down, ordered our drinks, and started the usual first date rhythm. Background stories, random opinions, half-serious ambitions. I even laughed a few times, genuinely, which surprised me. But the first odd thing happened when he casually mentioned he previously matched with someone not too far from here, and everyone instantly went cold inside my chest. I brushed it off. Dating apps overlapped. Cities are small. Coincidence happens. I told myself to chill. We kept talking. He spoke about how hard it is to find genuine people, how everyone feels fake, how he just wants something steady with someone who actually cares. And yeah, I know everyone says that, but the way he described it made it feel personal, like he was leaning into sincerity rather than just saying the line. Then I noticed he kept positioning his chair slightly so we could see the entrance clearly. Not casually. Not relaxed. His eyes flicked up every time the door opened like someone halfway expecting trouble. I asked if he was waiting for someone. He laughed it off, said he just liked people watching. My brain accepted the excuse even though my gut didn't. A few sips into my drink, I excused myself to the bathroom. On my way back, I noticed two officers standing just inside the doorway speaking quietly with a bar manager. My steps slowed a little, instinctively tense, even though I had done nothing wrong. The manager pointed gently toward our side of the room. Toward him. My stomach knotted so tightly I thought I might actually pass out mid-step. I reached the table just as the officers approached. They didn't make a scene. Their voices were calm but firm, the kind that silently shifts the energy of the whole building without raising a tone. My date's posture tightened instantly, like his body recognized authority before his words did. They asked a few neutral questions, and then quietly mentioned his name, confirming details that made his face lose color. Then came the part that completely drained the warmth from the night. He had been reported earlier that same day for obsessively following and repeatedly contacting another woman from the same app. Showing up uninvited, watching from distances, trying to track her movement, making her feel unsafe. Not a misunderstanding, not a misread conversation. A full complaint was already logged. My chest felt hollow, like every word he'd spoken tonight evaporated instantly. He tried explaining, tried softening his tone, said it was twisted, said he cared too much, said people overreact sometimes. But nothing in his voice felt grounded anymore. It felt defensive, rushed, like someone trying to control a narrative already slipping away. The officers didn't accuse me of anything. They just asked if everything was okay and whether he had made me uncomfortable in any way. And even though I hadn't felt threatened until that very moment, knowing what I now knew shifted every memory of him within seconds. He watched entrances. He mentioned previous matches nearby. He spoke about emotional attachment in a way that now felt intense instead of tender. The officers told him he'd need to step outside for further questioning. He stood up slowly, jaw clenched, eyes flicking toward me, almost searching for some form of backup or sympathy. But all I felt was complete discomfort. He wasn't a misunderstood romantic. He wasn't overly caring. He was crossing lines in spaces no one should. I stayed seated as they escorted him toward the door, the room filled with awkward whispers. People pretending not to stare while clearly staring. And for once, I didn't feel humiliated. I just felt unsettled that I had been sitting across someone capable of making another woman feel watched, chased, unsettled in her own routine. My hands shook slightly, and I rested them on the table to stop it showing. The bar manager checked if I needed anything. I shook my head politely and asked for the bill even though I hadn't finished my drink. Outside, I watched from a distance as the officers spoke to him more intensely. His shoulders rose and fell with agitation. Body language sharp. Nothing gentle about it anymore. No soft smiles. No casual charm. Just a guy whose mask slipped faster than he expected. I couldn't stop imagining how it must have felt for the woman who reported him. Noticing him appear repeatedly. Recognizing his presence even when trying to avoid it. Feeling that slow dread build up when someone refuses to respect boundaries. And my brain replayed one detail he mentioned earlier that suddenly stood out again. Someone not too far from here. That line suddenly felt chilling. I gathered my things and left without another glance. The night air hit my face harder than usual, cool and grounding. My phone buzzed as soon as I stepped onto the pavement, his name flashing across the screen like he was still entitled to reach me. I didn't respond. I blocked it. I walked home slower than normal, footsteps echoing along the quiet street. Every shadow felt more noticeable now. Every passerby caught my attention a little longer than natural. Not because I was scared of them, but because the sense of trust I walked into that pub with had been completely shaken. Another 12 minutes at that table, and I might have gone somewhere quieter with him. Might let the conversation deepen. Might have accepted his sweet words at face value. That scared me more than the actual moment itself. When I reached my door, I stood there for a minute in silence before unlocking it. Not because I felt unsafe, just because the weight of it all landed fully at last. Someone can look normal, sound warm, speak kindly, and still carry behavior that silently unravels someone else's peace without hesitation. He probably went back to swiping the next day. New photos, new lines, new calm voice. But that report somewhere in the system would always remain a quiet warning behind his digital smile. What bothered me most wasn't that he was taken away. It was how close I came to thinking he was just another decent guy trying to find something real. Some people wear charm, some people wear patience, and some people wear patterns that everyone else only sees too late. I should have known something was off the second she suggested a busy riverside food market instead of somewhere calm. She said she liked the chaos, the music, the way people moved around without pressure. It sounded cool at first, like a chilled vibe, but deep down I think she just wanted a place where disappearing for a minute wouldn't look suspicious. I ignored the thought and told myself to relax, because overthinking ruins everything and I didn't want to be that guy. We'd been messaging for nearly a week straight, nothing deep but consistent. Little jokes, random selfies, late replies that still felt intentional. She said she hated fake people and wanted something genuine. That line always hits harder than it should, so I fell for it instantly. It made me feel like this link-up might actually be different from the usual swipe and vanish routine. The market was loud, colorful, full of people laughing over overpriced street food and drinks. Fairy lights hanging above like someone tried to make ordinary feel dreamy. I spotted her by one of the stalls, phone in her hand, hair down, dressed like she'd put effort in but not too much. She smiled when she saw me and I felt that rush of relief that she at least showed up exactly how she looked online. We grabbed food, found a little spot near the water, and started chatting. It was all right at first. Casual jokes, small talk, the usual "so what do you do" energy. She laughed a lot, but her eyes rarely stayed on me for long. They kept flicking toward her phone like it was gently pulling her away every few seconds. I tried not to say anything. I didn't want to judge. Some people are glued to their screens. That's just life now. But it became obvious fast that this wasn't casual scrolling. She'd type intensely, then look up, then excuse herself saying she needed to take a call, move a few steps away, and come back acting like nothing happened. This kept repeating. Every 10 minutes, she slipped away again. Different corners, different excuses. Everything except just standing still and being present. My gut started twisting, but I laughed it off. Told myself maybe she had work messages, family drama, anything normal. Anything that didn't involve me being the problem. At one point, I offered to grab us drinks and she said she'd wait here. When I came back, I noticed she was talking to some guy nearby, smiling in that overly friendly way. Way too familiar. It didn't look like a random inquiry. It looked rehearsed. I watched her shoulder tilt slightly toward him, the kind of move people make when they want attention. When she spotted me returning, the smile faded a little too fast. She stepped back and pretended she was just asking directions. I nodded and kept it calm, but my chest felt heavy. The cycle continued. Phone buzzing, quick messages, small disappearing acts. Reappearing with that same soft smile like nothing was unusual. But now the atmosphere felt wrong. Like I was waiting my turn in a place I didn't even realize had a queue. It wasn't until I caught a glimpse of her phone screen that everything fully hit. She left it on the table while stepping a meter away to greet someone. I didn't need to snoop, but the notification popped loud enough for my eyes to lock onto it. "Are you close?" I'm by the burger stall, wearing the red hoodie. And above that, another name. Another chat. Same type of message. Same location. Same tone. My stomach dropped. I unlocked my own phone to check the app out of instinct and refreshed the page. Her profile was still active. Still recently online. Still showing green dot. Meaning she was actively using it right now, while standing in front of me. Fear turned into cold clarity. I scrolled slightly on her phone screen before she turned around and saw me looking. And there it was, clear as day. 3 separate message threads, 3 different men, all being invited to the exact same spot. "Meet me near the water. I'll be there soon." Same line, copy-pasted, 3 times. That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't a misread. That was planning. She wasn't on a date. She was hosting auditions. My hands felt heavy, but my mind felt sharp. I stepped back slightly instead of confronting her straight away, wanting to see how far this mess went. And that's when I noticed one of the guys approaching from the far end, scanning the crowd like someone searching for a specific face. She waved at him slightly while still pretending she was talking to me, as if multitasking humans like spins on a platter was just second nature. He walked closer, and that moment felt surreal. Like I suddenly realized I wasn't in a date scenario. I was in a weird competition I never agreed to enter. She noticed my face change and tried to brush it off, but her eyes flickered with something close to panic for the first time. Then another guy appeared, also looking confused, scanning around, checking his phone. She subtly gestured toward him too. Casual. Practiced. 3 people. Same spot. Same night. I stepped back fully now, no longer wanting to be part of her circus. She tried to laugh it off, started explaining poorly, but I wasn't listening. I didn't need a breakdown. The evidence sat right in front of me. She'd set up a conveyor belt of options, and I just happened to be the first to arrive. The moment clicked so clearly it made me feel stupid for not seeing it sooner. The constant phone use, the slipping away, the unnatural calm. All of it a system for juggling multiple people without a second thought. I shook my head slowly, not angrily, not dramatically, just disappointed in myself more than her, because I believed her soft words, believed her "I like honesty" speech, believed that flicker of charm. The guys closed in slightly, confused by each other's presence, finally seeing that they were part of the same disgusting setup. Her expression shifted from playful to defensive instantly, but no apology came out properly. No real guilt, just irritation that the structure collapsed too early. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I don't do scenes. I just turned away and walked off, leaving all of them standing there tangled in her nonsense. My phone buzzed immediately as I moved further away, message after message from her, explaining, excusing, downplaying it like it wasn't as serious as it clearly was. I read none of it. I blocked her automatically. The gesture felt surprisingly peaceful. I walked along the river path, letting the night cool my face. The music from the market faded behind me, and the noise softened into distant echoes. I could still picture her smile and how fake it felt now. All of it just a performance for whoever took the bait quickest. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the realization that she never planned to be genuine with any of us. We were just names fading in and out of her notifications. When I finally got home, I sat on my bed for a while just processing the stupidity of it all. Not sad, not heartbroken, just slightly embarrassed and grossed out by how normal she made manipulation look. And yeah, I'd never felt like someone's side option before, but that night made it painfully clear how easily people treat connection like a numbers game. Some people date for feelings. Some people date for options. She dated for sport. I already felt slightly on edge before I even stepped outside, and I still don't know why I ignored that feeling. Maybe it was the way he kept talking about his car like it was part of his personality, like some badge of pride he wanted me to notice. In his profile photos, he was always leaning against the same shiny vehicle, clean rims, tinted windows, the whole "I've got my life together" look. It made him seem stable, safe, predictable. I told myself at least I won't be getting picked up by someone reckless. So when I stood on the pavement waiting and saw a completely different car roll up, something heavy dropped straight into my stomach. This one was older, darker, slightly beat up. The paint scratched in places like it had seen rough nights it didn't want to remember. It wasn't the car from his photos. Not even close. And yet the driver window rolled down and there he was, smiling like nothing was off. I froze for a second, trying to process the mismatch. He leaned out and gestured for me to get in like everything was perfectly normal. I forced a weak smile and asked about the car change. He laughed it off, said he borrowed a mate's for the night because his was being sorted. It didn't sit right, but I brushed it aside because I didn't want to sound paranoid straight away. First date nerves already felt heavy. I didn't want to add more tension. I climbed in, shut the door, and that faint smell hit me. Not freshener. Not new car scent. Something stale mixed with sharp metal. The seatbelt felt slightly worn under my fingers, and the dashboard had faint scuff marks like someone had scraped their hands against it too often. He started driving, chatting away casually, trying to keep energy light. Jokes about traffic, music, random nonsense. He acted relaxed, like someone who had absolutely nothing to hide. But my eyes kept drifting around the interior, noticing little things that didn't match the version he painted online. There was a dark cloth half shoved under the seat, an empty energy drink can rolling on the floor. The glove compartment slightly open like it had been rummaged through earlier. I tried focusing on the conversation instead of the surroundings, telling myself not everyone drives a perfect car. Not everyone keeps it spotless. I should relax. Then the flashing lights appeared in the mirror. Blue and white bursting suddenly behind us, filling the car with a sharp glow that made my heartbeat slam directly into my throat. I sat upright instantly, mind racing, trying to understand why the police would be pulling us over when we had only left a minute earlier. He didn't slow down straight away. That's when panic truly slid under my skin. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and his jaw shifted slightly. Not relaxed anymore, weighed down, tense. Then he pulled over slowly, tires crunching against the curb, the siren dying down as the lights kept rotating behind us. I stared out the side window, trying to remain calm, but adrenaline had fully kicked in now. 2 officers approached, one on his side, one closer to mine. Their expressions weren't casual or bored. They looked focused, serious. One of them asked him for details and then radioed something back that I couldn't fully catch. His voice trembled despite him trying to appear composed. I could feel his unease vibrating through the space between us. The officer leaned slightly closer toward the driver's side and said the car had been marked as linked to a recent robbery nearby. I swear my soul left my body for a second. Robbery. Not wrong parking. Not a routine check. A vehicle actively flagged for criminal activity. My head spun as I stared at his side profile. He didn't look surprised. He looked cornered. Like this moment was always floating closer and he had just hoped it wouldn't catch up so soon. They asked him to step out of the vehicle. He complied, but not without hesitant movement, hands slightly shaking, eyes darting around like he was measuring escape routes in real time. I stayed inside frozen, heart thudding so loud it drowned out the rest of the street noise. They started examining the car, shining torches into the back seats, checking under the boot, scribbling notes, even glancing at me like I might have known more than I did. One officer asked if I knew him personally or how long we've been connected. I explained this was a first date, that I met him online, that I genuinely believed the car we would be using was the one from his profile. Saying those words out loud felt worse than the situation itself. They nodded slowly, clearly already piecing together information. Apparently, the vehicle had been spotted at the scene of a break-in 2 hours earlier. The owner had reported it missing that same morning. It wasn't borrowed. It wasn't temporary. It was taken. He tried insisting he had no idea where the car came from, that someone lent it to him, that there was a misunderstanding, but his voice didn't carry conviction. Even I didn't believe him, and I had only known him for a handful of messages. They placed cuffs around his wrists without drama, but with cold efficiency. The metal clink echoed in the silence between us, and something dropped deep inside my chest. This was not a cute night out. This was not a dating app success story. This was me sitting in a stolen car next to someone whose online persona meant absolutely nothing now. I was asked to step out too, just for clarity. I did as told, hands still slightly trembling. I could feel people staring from nearby houses, curious silhouettes peeking through curtains like we'd become a neighborhood spectacle. They reassured me I wasn't in trouble, just caught in the crossfire of his choices, but the words didn't erase the shock. I watched as he was guided toward the back of the police car, still trying to maintain some level of cool, like charm alone could undo what he'd just been exposed for. He turned his head once, eyes locking on mine for a second. Not apologetic, not embarrassed. Just a tight look, like annoyance, like this whole night was a problem he didn't want to deal with. I looked away. The rest of the interaction blurred into short answers and formal checks. They let me take my belongings and advised me to arrange alternative transport home. Standing there alone on the pavement felt surreal. I hadn't even reached the first real part of the date, and it was already completely derailed. I pulled my phone out, and his app profile was still open on the screen, smiling like a polished fantasy from another version of reality. I stared at it for a moment and then blocked it without hesitation. My hands were still cold when I finally started walking back. The street felt too quiet, too normal for what just unfolded. Every passing car now looked suspicious. Every engine sound made me jump slightly. The idea that he casually rolled up thinking he could pass off a stolen vehicle as standard transport still feels unsettling. Like he learned to cover chaos with small talk and confidence. And the fact that I trusted a stranger's curated profile more than my own instincts that night, yeah, that one sat with me longer. This wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't even disappointment in the usual sense. It was that strange hollow sensation you get when reality reminds you how unpredictable some people are behind smooth smiles and edited photos. And all I could think was how close I came to being dragged deeper into something I never signed up for. I don't think I've ever trusted a stranger that fast and regretted it even quicker. The way she messaged felt effortless, like she wasn't trying too hard but still kept the vibe alive. Little jokes, playful sarcasm, random selfies that felt real instead of staged. When she suggested a chilled night at a rooftop bar, I actually felt excited instead of nervous. That hardly ever happens for me. The place looked decent too. Warm lights strung across the ceiling, chill music, people laughing and leaning into each other over half-filled glasses. It felt a safe kind of setting, the type you go to unwind and pretend your week wasn't exhausting. She was already there when I arrived, perched on one of the stools with confidence, casually scrolling on her phone like she was waiting for someone she expected to show. Her smile was wide when she saw me, and I'll admit I let my guard drop instantly. First mistake of the night. We ordered drinks, laughed about the awkwardness of meeting someone from an app for the first time, shared surface-level stories. Everything felt smooth. Too smooth, maybe. I noticed her eyes wandering a bit, scanning the crowd more than looking at me, but I brushed it off because maybe she just liked people watching. Then the subtle things started creeping in. The way she leaned slightly too close to strangers while passing through. How her bag sat awkwardly half open by her side. The way she'd shift behind people even when there was more space available elsewhere. I convinced myself she was just clumsy or hyper chatty. I didn't want to jump to any conclusions too soon. At one point, she excused herself to grab another drink and said I should join her at the bar instead of waiting at the table. I followed, standing just a step behind her as she squeezed into the crowd, and that's when I noticed something weird. Her hand brushed against a guy's jacket pocket. Not randomly. Slow, deliberate, fingers curling just slightly before pulling back. I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe the crowd caused it. But as we moved another inch forward, her hand did it again, this time toward a woman's handbag. Smooth and careful like she'd learned the motion. I didn't want to believe what my eyes were showing me, so I watched closer. She angled herself behind a man leaning on the counter, body positioned so no one could see clearly. Her fingers slid toward his back pocket again. Not clumsy, not accidental. Purposeful and silent. My stomach dropped. She was trying to steal. And she wasn't even nervous about it. My pulse started racing, eyes darting between her hand and a guy who had absolutely no clue what was happening. I wanted to say something, but fear froze it inside my throat. Just as her fingers edged deeper, another hand suddenly grabbed her wrist. Security. He had been watching her the whole time. The man turned around in confusion while the guard gently but firmly pulled her away from the bar. Her entire expression flipped in seconds. Surprise first, then irritation, then sudden forced sweetness like she could charm her way out of it. But it didn't work. More staff stepped in. People around started whispering, eyes locking onto us both. This wasn't just a small misunderstanding now. This was full exposure mid-date. The security guard said something sharp, signaling toward the exit, and her shoulders tensed instantly. She tried laughing it off, but no one else was laughing. The entire mood of the night shifted dramatically, and I just stood there numb watching the scene unravel. I could feel heat rising in my face because everyone started glancing at me too. Like I somehow came packaged with her chaos, like I dragged her in, like I was part of it. They escorted her away slowly, hands still gripping her arm, while she muttered and tried shaking free. Not ashamed. More annoyed that she had been caught, and she didn't even look at me until the last second. Her eyes met mine for a flicker. Not apologetic. Not embarrassed. Just a cold look of frustration, like I missed my cue to defend her. Then she was gone. Dragged out of the space she clearly never respected in the first place. I stood there awkwardly for a moment while people tried going back to their drinks and laughter like nothing chaotic just happened. But the space around me felt thicker, like I had a sign on my back saying, "Poor lad." A bartender came over and asked if I was okay. I nodded even though my brain was still trying to process what I had witnessed. The words felt meaningless in my mouth. Okay was not even close. I picked up my drink that I no longer wanted and placed it back down untouched. My appetite for everything had vanished. As I walked back toward the table we originally sat at, I replayed the moment in my head, the smooth movement, the confidence, the lack of hesitation. It wasn't her first time, and it definitely wouldn't have been her last if security hadn't caught her when they did. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe she planned that night around crowds and low lighting on purpose, that the bar wasn't chosen for ambience, but for opportunity. And then the heavier thought landed. What if she had tried it on me too? My pockets, my bag, my phone. Was I supposed to feel lucky or just disgusted? My phone buzzed on the table. Her name flashed across the screen like nothing wild had just taken place. A message popped up saying she couldn't believe how uptight people get over small things. I stared at it in disbelief. She tried minimizing theft like it was a personality trait or quirky habit. Without hesitation, I blocked her. No response. No explanation. No closure needed. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face harder than expected, like it was washing something off that I didn't want sticking to me. The streetlights glowed softly, and the music inside dulled as the door shut behind me. I walked slowly down the pavement, letting the moment settle rather than pretending it didn't exist. I wasn't heartbroken. I was embarrassed I even sat across from her thinking this could have turned into something real. The idea that she likely does this every weekend, jumping from place to place, slipping fingers into strangers' belongings without any guilt. That thought stayed heavy. And the worst part wasn't that she tried to steal. It was how casually she blended manipulation with flirtation, like they were part of the same skill set. By the time I got home, I just sat on the edge of my bed in silence for a while. Not angry, just unsettled, like I'd brushed shoulders with a side of human behavior I never wanted in my space. I wasn't scared, just disappointed that something that started so light turned into something that made my skin crawl. And yeah, I'll admit, the next time someone suggests a bar date, I'm double-checking more than just the menu. I wish I listened to my gut the second he said he already knew the place and didn't ask for my opinion. Not in a confident, cute way, more like he pre-planned everything and I was just filling in a role. I ignored it though, because I was tired of flaky guys and his consistency. Everything felt suspended in the air, but the whole restaurant could sense what was about to happen. And then he tried it. He shifted, checking if anyone spotted him, and moved quicker toward the doorway like he just remembered something urgent. He didn't look at me once. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't make an excuse. Just tried to melt into the background. Except the waiter had already clocked him. Within seconds, staff stepped forward, blocking his path, calling another worker over, pointing in his direction. Murmurs spread through the place and eyes turned. He froze. His entire calmness shattered in 1 second. I watched it all unfold, feeling embarrassed for even being associated with him. People glanced at me now, too, connecting dots without even knowing the full situation. They didn't shout. They didn't cause a scene. They simply held him there and already had the manager approaching, face tense and tired like this was not his first rodeo. His expression flickered through panic, annoyance, and then forced calm, but it wasn't convincing. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was repetition. I stood up slowly, grabbed my bag, and stepped away from the table without saying a word to him. The air felt heavy, like I was cutting a thread tying me to something deeply embarrassing. My face felt hot, not from shame, but from the realization that I nearly paid for someone who fully intended to bolt. As I walked toward the exit, I overheard bits again. Staff saying his name. Staff confirming previous incidents. One even mentioning how the photo was stuck in their internal group chat to warn other places nearby. He was a known routine. And I had almost trusted that routine. Outside, the air felt sharp and clear compared to the thick tension I left behind. I exhaled slowly, trying to regulate my shaking hands. My phone buzzed, his name flashing across the screen like nothing had just blown up. I didn't hesitate. Block. I replayed everything that led up to that moment. His sudden charm, the exit scanning, the timing of his getaway, how nicely he wrapped bad intentions in polite energy. It wasn't just awkward, it was unsettling, like watching someone perform manipulation as if it were second nature. Walking home, I kept thinking of how many other people he had dragged into this weird sequence. How many staff members had warned each other. How many nights he'd ruined just to avoid paying for his own choices. And the scary part, he would probably move on to the next place tomorrow like nothing ever happened. New table, new face, same escape plan. By the time I shut my door behind me, all I felt was relief mixed with disbelief that people like that exist so casually in everyday spaces. Not dramatic villains, just quiet manipulators hiding behind warm smiles and empty compliments. I didn't feel devastated. I felt cleared, like dodging something that could have turned worse had I ignored those murmurs just a little bit more. It started off weird and I still ignored it, which honestly says more about me than anything else. She didn't want cafe, didn't want to walk, didn't want anything normal. She specifically said to meet her in a multi-story car park near a retail park on the edge of town. Said she liked quiet vibes and didn't want people watching. I remember staring at the message for a good minute thinking this someone had to be a joke, but she kept insisting it was fine, that she hated crowded places. She'd been flirty for days, sending selfies, asking deep random questions, making it feel playful. The type that replies fast and compliments you just enough to keep you interested. So even though the location sounded off, I told myself maybe she was just quirky and dramatic in a mysterious way. I pulled into the car park just after 9, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, echo of tires somewhere below, that hollow sound you only get in car parks at night. It wasn't peaceful. It was eerie, and the fact she chose this over literally any other spot already made my stomach uneasy. She texted saying she was on level 3. I parked and walked up the concrete ramp, footsteps echoing like I was walking through an empty maze. When I finally spotted her, she was leaning casually against a pillar, phone in hand, looking around a little too much for someone who wanted privacy. She smiled when she saw me like this whole setup was cute and normal. We did a quick hug and stood next to her car, talking small stuff at first. Where I parked, how my drive was. Usual surface replies. But I noticed straight away she kept glancing past me. Not just scanning randomly, specifically checking a direction behind my shoulder. I laughed it off and asked if she was waiting on someone, and she brushed it away saying she just felt anxious in open spaces. Said Bay areas freaked her out, but she didn't move away. She just stayed positioned where she could see the entrance ramp clearly. We leaned against our cars, chatting awkwardly about life and dating apps. She kept asking me where I came from, if I told anyone I was here, if I lived nearby. Questions that felt slightly off, but not dangerous enough for me to pull away yet. Every few minutes her phone buzzed, and she'd quickly flip it over so I couldn't see the screen. Smile forced, lips tight for a second before relaxing again. I kept catching faint reflections of message previews, but couldn't read clearly. I just knew whoever was contacting her wasn't meant to see me. Then I noticed him. A shadow near one of the parked cars a little distance away, standing still too long, pretending to scroll, watching but not approaching. My eyes locked on his silhouette, and I felt that prickly tension creep up my neck. She noticed me noticing. Her smile faltered for half a second, and she widened it again like she could control the whole situation. Said something about needing fresh air even though we were literally surrounded by open space. It made no sense. We kept talking, but her focus was split between me and that guy lurking a few meters away. Every time I shifted slightly, she repositioned herself to stay in his line of sight. That's when it fully clicked. I wasn't here for a date. I was here as proof. As a distraction. As her cover. My chest tightened, but I played it cool to fully understand the situation. The guy kept pacing, phone pressed to his ear now, body language aggressive and tense. I could see the tension pouring off him even from where I stood. She kept subtly leaning closer to me, making it obvious we were together, laughing louder than normal, brushing her arm against mine unnecessarily, creating a scene of closeness that felt manufactured and desperate. Then her phone vibrated again. She glanced down too quickly this time, and I saw part of the message. Why is he still there? That was for me. Not sent by me. Clearly not for me. Everything dropped into place. She wasn't just casually meeting me. She needed someone watching her to believe she wasn't doing something worse. The guy finally started walking toward us. Slow, heavy footsteps, alert eyes. His face wasn't curious. It was stormy, filled with betrayal barely being contained. She instantly stepped a tiny bit closer to me, hands brushing mine as if to paint the picture of us being something solid. My entire body rejected the move, but I didn't step away just yet. I wanted to see where this went. He stopped a couple steps away, eyes moving between us. Jaw tight, breathing louder. I could feel the tension around us thicken. She didn't look scared. She looked calculated, like she already planned this exact moment. He said something bitter under his breath and pulled his phone up, showing her messages, proof, timestamps, desperate texts she clearly sent, all expecting him to accept quiet lies. She barely looked guilty. She barely even looked at him properly. Just kept the act up, smiling oddly, pointing at me like she'd won some argument. I stared at her in disbelief. I realized then I'd followed directions like an idiot into someone else's relationship drama just so she could visually prove she was busy. That's all I was. A tool in between her cheating reality and his growing suspicion. He grew more upset, voice shaking with anger and pain, but he didn't direct it at me. Not fully. He knew I wasn't the mastermind behind this. I was just the guy dragged into the mess to make her look less guilty. She tried acting casual, saying it was no big deal, saying they were taking space. Yet the proof on his screen said otherwise. Recent texts, recent calls. Promises she broke without blinking. My cheeks burned with frustration. Not jealousy. Not heartbreak. Just humiliation. I didn't want to be here. Didn't want to witness the scene. Didn't want to play a part in her twisted narrative any longer. So I stepped back. Created physical space. Refused to be part of her visual alibi anymore. She shot me a sharp look, the smile finally slipping, but I didn't care. The situation had already gone too far. I told them both I was leaving and turned away, walking back toward my car with heavy steps. I didn't look back again. Their voices still echoed behind me, sharp and heated, but I had no business soaking any more of that chaos into my night. When I reached my seat, I locked my door instantly and sat there staring at the steering wheel, heart racing. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Her name lit up the screen. Apology text. Excuse text. Justifications layered over lies. I didn't even open it. Lock. Silence. I pulled out of the car park slowly, headlights cutting through the concrete walls, and the weight of what just happened settled in my chest. Not emotional heartbreak. More like raw embarrassment mixed with anger that I even showed up. I kept replaying the moment she brushed against my arm like a prop, like I was a character in a fake scene she scripted for someone else's eyes. And what hit hardest wasn't the fact she was cheating. It was how easily she pulled me into it without thinking twice. Just used me, stood me there, smiled. All part of her cover. By the time I got home, I just sat quietly on my bed for a while, thinking about how weird dating has become. How people create entire situations just to justify their own mess. That wasn't a date. That was a staged illusion I never signed up for. The night started simple enough, the kind of link-up I almost canceled twice because I wasn't sure if I even had the energy. We met through a dating app that's full of smooth talkers and half promises, but somehow he stood out because he didn't try too hard. No big flashy lines, just laid-back messages and goofy little jokes that made it feel easy. He suggested a chilled evening walk and said we could grab snacks along the way. I thought harmless. I thought safe. I thought I'd be home by 10 with nothing dramatic to remember. He looked normal when I spotted him waiting by the corner shop. Not too dressed up, not scruffy either. Just that in-between look that makes you relax. We said hi, did the awkward half-hug, and started walking side by side like it was nothing special. The streetlights glowed warm above us, cars passing now and then, and at first it felt almost nice. Calm. Predictable, which is probably why I didn't clock the tiny red flags early on. He kept checking behind us while we walked. Not obviously. Subtle little glances over his shoulder like he was making sure nobody was following. I joked about it, and he laughed it off, said he just hated busy roads, but my gut twisted at the weirdness of it. We passed a couple of closed shops, then turned into a quieter residential area, the kind with long rows of parked cars and neat little houses where people assume they're safe. He said he needed to grab something quickly and pointed toward a side street, telling me it would only take a minute. I hesitated for a second because something about the turn felt dodgy, but I followed anyway. He'd been fine so far, and I didn't want to be judged as paranoid. The vibe shifted the second we stepped off the main road. No traffic sounds. No people. Just that eerie stillness that makes your footsteps feel louder than they should. He slowed down slightly, walking closer to the hedges, and I could see his jaw tighten. Then he slowed even more. He stopped in front of a narrow path leading behind a row of houses. Not open, not public-looking, just a small gap between fences. He said again he just needed to check something quick, that it wouldn't take long. My chest tightened. This was no longer a casual grab something stop. This felt wrong. I stayed at the entrance of the path while he walked deeper into the darkness. The further he went, the less I could see him properly. I strained my eyes, trying to understand what he was doing, and then I heard metal. A faint clinking sound, followed by quiet rustling, then the unmistakable creak of wood shifting under pressure. I edged forward slightly, heart picking up speed. I wasn't even sure why I was still standing there instead of walking away completely. Curiosity mixed with fear has a weird grip. I peered down the path just far enough to catch a clearer view. He was at the back of a stranger's garden, crouched down by a small shed, forcing something into the door. His shoulders tense, movements sharp and urgent. He glanced around again, quicker this time, and my stomach dropped hard. He wasn't grabbing something forgotten. He was breaking in. I froze, my feet glued to the pavement like my body refused to accept what my eyes had just processed. He yanked the shed door open slightly and slipped inside, out of sight, while I stood there stunned trying to understand how a date turned into this. Moments later, he came back out holding a tool bag. Not his. Definitely not his. The type of bag you know belongs to someone who actually works for a live. Heavy, worn, practical. He forced another glance around, then grabbed a couple of loose tools too. Quick and messy. I didn't even move. Didn't shout. Didn't step forward. I just stood there watching him commit something I wanted no part of. And then, like the universe decided enough was enough, sirens sliced through the silence. Not distant, not faint. Close, loud, approaching fast. His head snapped up immediately, eyes wide, panic settling in like someone poured ice water down his spine. The confidence from earlier vanished completely. He looked toward the entrance of the path, saw me still standing there, and for a second our eyes locked. There was no apology in his look, just fear and desperation. He bolted, yanked the bag up, and sprinted down the opposite end of the path, crashing through shrubs, scraping against fences, trying to disappear before anyone saw him clearly. And it just remained there, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. 2 police cars pulled up seconds later, headlights cutting across the narrow street like a stage spotlight. One officer jumped out, scanning the area, asking if anyone had seen a suspect, his voice sharp, urgent. I pointed shakily toward the direction he ran, explaining that I had no idea what was happening until I saw him at the shed. My voice barely felt like my own. They nodded quickly and took off in that direction while another officer stayed behind to ask more. My head felt fogged, confused, like the ground moved beneath me even though I was standing still. He had been laughing with me 10 minutes earlier about stupid memes and favorite snacks. Now he was sprinting away from sirens like a criminal caught mid-act. They asked me basic things. Name, how I knew him, where we met. I explained everything honestly, pointing at my phone where his profile was still open, still smiling like he hadn't just ruined my entire night. Apparently he'd already been linked to multiple break-ins across nearby streets. Mostly garden sheds. Mostly tools. Quick grabs. Sell on or pee. This wasn't a mistake. This was routine for him. The officers assured me I wasn't in trouble and thanked me for staying calm. I nodded, even though my hands were shaking and my stomach felt hollow. Once the scene cleared, the street returned to that same quiet stillness as before, but now it felt heavier. Tainted, like the air itself knew what had just unfolded. I walked home slowly, every shadow suddenly suspicious, every footstep behind me triggering small bursts of anxiety. My phone buzzed once with his name, and I didn't even hesitate before blocking it instantly. I kept replaying the moment I saw him crouched by that shed door, his casual smile, his soft voice, the way he talked about wanting a peaceful night. All of it twisted now into something ugly. And what scared me most wasn't just that he was stealing. It was how normal he acted while doing it. Like this double life wasn't even stressful for him. When I finally got home, I sat on my bed staring at the wall for ages, not crying, not angry, just silent, embarrassed that I trusted someone so easily, disturbed that I almost walked right into trouble by simply following someone I barely knew. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic, just a slow realization that not every charming stranger deserves your patience or your presence. And the fact I stood there watching him break into someone's property, knowing I could have been dragged into that mess, still sits heavy. I knew something felt off before the main course even hit the table, but I brushed it off like I always do when I'm trying not to look dramatic. The plan sounded normal enough at first. She suggested this small Italian place tucked behind a high street full of phone repair shops and late-night takeaways, said it was quiet and cozy, and she liked the lighting. That alone made me think this date might actually be serious. Someone picking atmosphere instead of just saying, wanna chill. We've been chatting 2 weeks straight, every day basically building a full routine around each other. Morning texts, late night voice notes, or sending half blurry pics of her coffee, me telling her dumb stories about work. She made it feel like she was waiting for this meetup, like I was some special rare find instead of just another guy sliding on an app. When I walked in, she was already seated, smiling the kind of smile that makes you forget every bad one before. Hair done, but not overdone, a soft jumper, gold necklace resting just perfectly. She stood up for a hug, and for a second it all felt weirdly real, like this was finally moving from screen to reality in the way you always hope. We ordered drinks, joked about how awkward first impressions usually are, laughed about random stuff neither of us would remember tomorrow. She said her day had been stressful, but seeing me made it better. That line hit, not gonna lie. I softened instantly. But then came the little signs, the ones you ignore when you really want a night to go smoothly. She kept checking the restaurant door every time it opened. Not in a casual way. More like someone expecting a delivery they don't want seen. She would pause mid-sentence whenever her phone lit up, flipping it face down faster than normal. I noticed that her screen flashed a guy's name with a heart next to it, but I chose not to focus on it. I told myself it could be her brother or something stupid like that. We talked about where we grew up, what kind of music we liked, how we hated ghosting culture. She said honesty mattered to her. I remember nodding along, thinking how rare that felt. 10 minutes later, a man walked in who definitely wasn't part of the restaurant decor. He wasn't dressed for a date. He looked tense, jaw tight, eyes scanning the place until they locked onto our table. His face wasn't confused. It was loaded, like he'd been holding something heavy for too long and finally cracked under its weight. My stomach sank instantly. He walked toward us with slow steps, hands clenched in fists, and stood right beside her chair. The air shifted so fast, even people nearby started glancing over. She froze. Not a polite pause. A full body stiffen, like the whole world had just collided with her. I looked between them, trying to understand the dynamic forming in front of me. This wasn't a jealous ex or an overprotective friend. This was something deeper. He pulled his phone out, screen already lit, and placed it on the table right in front of me like evidence being dropped in court. Screenshots stacked one after the other. Her profile. Different photos. Flirtatious texts. Miss you, babe. I'll be home soon. Various timestamps, all dating back months. My heart dropped deeper than I thought possible. He scrolled through more. Messages she'd sent while sitting across from me on previous dates. Selfies taken the same jumper she was wearing right now. Even her location sharing turned on, showing she had been hopping between him and other guys for weeks. Married. For 3 years. He said it quietly but clearly. Not angry shouting. More devastated truth sharing. She'd been telling people she was single while returning to their shared home every night like nothing was happening. Hiding apps. Changing passwords. Deleting notifications. Running a parallel world alongside their marriage. I felt like the ground just dipped away beneath my feet. She tried to speak, but whatever came out barely made sense. Excuses layered with half apologies, nervous laughs that didn't fit the moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone like she could rewrite reality if she scrolled fast enough. He didn't raise his voice. That almost made it worse, just kept showing proof. Screenshots of her flirting while claiming she was working late. Proof of secret meetups. Fake names she saved in her phone. My face burned, not from jealousy, from embarrassment. From realizing I had walked into someone else's married nightmare without a clue. The restaurant had gone quiet around us, forks hovering mid-air, whispers creeping through nearby tables. Everyone pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. She finally looked at me, eyes pleading like I should understand, like this was somehow also my responsibility to process. I didn't feel sorry. I felt used, like a pawn dropped into the middle of her hidden game. He explained more, voice heavy but controlled. Said he followed her tonight after finding the app on her tablet at home. Found the messages, traced the location, waited outside just to confirm the truth that had already broken his mind. And I just sat there realizing I had probably been messaging her while she sat on their sofa pretending to watch tea with him. The idea alone made my skin crawl. She wasn't just dating around. She was performing for 2 lives at the same time, wife by day. Single and free by night, smiling in selfies while juggling lives with impressive ease. I pushed my chair back slowly, standing up as gently as I could. I didn't want to fuel the moment any further. I wasn't there for drama. I was there for honesty that never existed. He nodded at me slightly, like we both understood now without needing words. Not friends, not rivals, just two people caught in her fabricated world. I grabbed my jacket, glanced at her one last time, and walked out. The cool air outside felt sharper than usual, like it was trying to rinse something ugly off my skin. Behind me, the voices blurred into background noise. Her defense, his hurt. The entire mess colliding in a space I'd already left. I walked a few blocks before I even checked my phone. A flood of messages already sat there from her. Apologies layered over excuses layered over panic. I didn't respond. Just hit block and breathed out slowly. My legs felt heavy as I headed home, brain replaying every sweet message she'd sent, every soft emoji, every late-night reassurance. All of it fake, or worse, all of it split between two realities. When I finally reached my door, I leaned against it for a second, just letting the silence land. Not heartbreak, more like a dull shock mixed with quiet disappointment. I didn't feel special. I felt like background noise in someone else's broken arrangement. And the wild thing, she probably still logged into that app the next day like nothing even happened. I should have known a surprise location was a bad idea the second he refused to just say where we were meeting. Every normal person drops an address, or at least a name of the place, but he kept saying to trust him, that it would be fun, that he liked planning things that felt different. I was bored, curious, and honestly a bit flattered someone put effort in for once, so I ignored that tiny warning voice and agreed. He sent me coordinates instead of a cafe name, like we were going on some mystery mission. The pin was in an industrial area I barely ever passed through, the kind of place with shuttered warehouses and empty units that looked like they only came alive at night for the wrong reasons. I hovered over the cancel button more than once but deleted my doubts along with it. I told myself not to be dramatic and left the house anyway. Hoodie on, trainers tied, hair pulled into a messy ponytail. I kept reassurance texting him on the way, and he replied quickly every time, calm and almost excited. Said I was gonna love it. That line stuck in my head. When I reached the location, there was no obvious venue. Just a narrow road, flickering streetlights, and an old building with faded graffiti peeling off the bricks. A tiny sign hung sideways above a metal door, unlit and almost impossible to read. It didn't look like somewhere you naturally meet for a cute date. He was already there leaning against the wall like everything about this was normal. Smiled when he saw me, hugged me briefly, then led the way inside without much explanation. The inside didn't feel right instantly. Low lighting, strong smell of smoke and stale air. The kind of buzz you feel when a place is busy but not welcoming. The walls were painted dark, and the music wasn't music, more like low background noise blended with murmurs. We descended a set of narrow stairs, and that's when I heard it clearly. The shuffle of cards, the clink of chips, soft voices whispering numbers. My chest tightened as we stepped into a wide underground room filled with tables and people crowded around them, analyzing hands, pushing money forward, nodding in silent agreement. Not a party. Not a lounge. Not even close. This wasn't the legal poker setup. My eyes widened as I scanned the room. Men mostly, older faces, tense stares, cash piled in messy stacks. It wasn't playful. It was serious. Risky. The type of place you don't just wander into for a date. I turned to him confused, but he just grinned like I'd walked into something impressive. Said this was part of the surprise. That he knew people down here. That it made the night feel more exciting. I didn't feel excited. I felt trapped. He guided me to a corner table and told me to relax, that I didn't have to play, just watch. But even sitting still, everything around me felt heavy and unsafe, like I somehow wandered into a world I wasn't meant to see. Players kept glancing at me with curiosity, like a stray piece dropped into their zone. I tried focusing on my breathing, pretending my heart wasn't racing under my ribs. Then chaos hit without warning. The door behind us flew open so fast it slammed against the wall. Hoots thundered against the concrete floor. Voices yelled sharply, but I didn't even catch the words properly because my body instinctively jumped in shock. Flashing lights filled the room, blue and white bouncing off sweaty faces and stacks of cards. Police. People scrambled instantly. Some tried pocketing chips, Others reached for bags, chairs screeching as they pushed back in panic. The calm poker vibe shattered into pure disorder. Hands went up. Tables froze mid-game. Someone swore loudly as officers moved through the room securing everything. I looked around desperately, trying to understand how my evening turned into a full-blown raid. My date suddenly wasn't smiling anymore. He stepped back slightly, eyes narrowing, jaw tight. That confident surprise planner persona vanished in seconds. Officers started questioning people, moving in fast, scanning faces like they already knew who half of them were. One of them pointed straight at the table we were near and approached us. Everything felt unreal, like I was standing inside a badly planned film plot. They asked for details, names, reasons why we were present. My voice felt shaky explaining I had no idea what this place even was, that I just followed along thinking it was some weird Dave idea. They looked at him now with more suspicion than me, clearly recognizing him. Apparently he wasn't just some casual player. He'd been connected to this ring for a while, organizing nights, bringing people in, helping money circulate under the radar. And I had walked straight into the middle of it because he thought a mystery meetup sounded romantic. As they separated us, he didn't even look at me with apology. More like frustration that his setup had been disrupted. A proper selfish type anger. I noticed some people being escorted toward the exit in cuffs, others getting their details taken, freeze frames of panic catching on everyone's expressions. It felt too intense for my brain to process properly. The officer speaking to me softened his tone slightly, assured me I wasn't in trouble since I clearly had no involvement, but I still felt dirty and shaky just standing there in that environment. Cards scattered across the floor, chips rolling endlessly, a broken drink seeping toward my shoes. This wasn't just a bad date. This was walking straight into someone else's illegal mess with no warning. After what felt like forever, they allowed me to leave, guided me up the stairs and out into cold night air. The sky looked calmer than everything I had just been trapped under. I walked away without looking back, chest still heavy, heart still beating too fast. My phone buzzed, but I didn't care to check. I already knew who it was. He tried messaging, saying I overreacted, saying it wasn't that serious, saying it was meant to be a fun edge of danger vibe. I blocked him immediately. Walked all the way home in silence, my mind replaying the moment those doors flew open, the police lights bleaching everyone's faces, the realization I had been used as a casual accessory to his underground lifestyle. It didn't feel dramatic, just unsettling, disappointing. Unsettling in that quiet way that clings to you when you realize people don't always treat dates as real connections, sometimes as just props for their stupid thrill-seeking world. I sat on my bed when I finally got back, staring at the ceiling for a long while, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside, a kind of sound that makes you feel alone in a crowded city. And the part that stuck with me most? The fact he thought this was impressive. Something to show off. Not considering for a second how reckless it was dragging someone into that situation with zero warning. I should have taken it as a sign that she turned up 20 minutes late and didn't even look guilty about it. Instead, she smiled like nothing was off, slipped into the chair opposite me, and acted like the night was only just beginning. This wasn't a restaurant or some basic coffee spot either. She picked this late opening dessert lounge above an old cinema, the kind that glows purple at night and smells constantly like sugar and caramel. It felt different enough to make me think this date might actually mean something. We had been messaging for just over a week. Nothing intense but steady. She liked sending voice notes at random times, giggling halfway through, saying she couldn't wait to meet. She called me sweet. Said she liked how normal I felt. Normal is rare on these apps, so yeah, I fell for that bit instantly. The lounge was half empty, neon reflections bouncing off glossy tables, low music humming quietly in the background. She ordered first without even asking what I wanted, which felt bold but not rude. I laughed it off. She sat with one leg tucked under the chair, phone already in her hand like it was an extension of her arm. At first it was fine. She joked about her job, her mates, some random drama from her group chat. I laughed, nodded, tried matching her energy. Every now and then she glanced down at her screen, tapped quickly, then flipped the phone face down again as if nothing happened. I didn't think much of it until I realized it wasn't just one phone. She had two. One sleek and new, the other slightly cracked at the corner, and she kept swapping between them like a person managing two separate lives. One minute she'd be scrolling on the shiny one, then casually slide it into her bag and pull the other out, fingers flying just as fast. At first I assumed work phone, maybe family. Maybe she was important. I'm not proud, but I even thought it was kind of cool in a chaotic way. But then the pattern started feeling off. Every time I'd say something personal, she'd look down and type. Not even responding properly sometimes, like she was on another conversation entirely, one she was more invested in. I joked lightly about her being popular, and she smirked, said she just likes to keep busy. But her eyes barely left the second phone, the cracked one, the one she guarded more. Our desserts arrived and she took a quick picture, angled perfectly, then instantly posted it somewhere. Her thumb kept sliding across the screen like muscle memory. She smiled, then went right back to typing. The glow from her phone softly lit her face, and with the angle it sat, I started recognizing the app layout. Same one we met on. My pulse shifted slightly. Not panic yet, just alert. I didn't want to accuse. Didn't want to make it awkward. I just watched quietly, trying to keep things normal, but then I saw it clearly. A profile picture pop up on her screen. A guy, shirtless gym mirror type. Name I had never heard before. Hearts by his name. And then her typing again, quick and casual, like she had done this so many times it didn't even register as odd. She laughed softly at something on her phone, then looked up at me as if we were still in the same conversation. But we weren't. She tilted her phone slightly while adjusting her grip, and I caught the words flashing back. Miss you already. Wish you were here instead. My stomach turned colder than the marble tabletop. She wasn't even hiding it properly, just flirting, casually, openly with someone else, while sitting right in front of me, face to face, pretending this moment meant anything. My grip tightened around my spoon. I stayed quiet, not because I was scared, but because I wanted to fully understand the disrespect happening in real time. She flicked the other phone again, typed something else, then smiled down at it like she was getting her dose of validation. She would glance back up at me for a second, asked something like how my dessert was, then immediately returned to messaging. It felt like I was background noise in my own date. I leaned back slightly and just observed now, like a spectator watching someone test how far they could push human decency. And the wild thing, she didn't seem nervous at all. Not secretive. Not stressed. Just bored and multitasking. Every now and then she'd send a selfie too. Carefully angled, soft expression. The exact same face she had presented to me in person minutes earlier. I knew she was talking to that same guy. I could tell because a notification popped up on my cracked screen phone too. Same username. Same one she kept typing to. He had swiped me while sitting opposite me. That detail punched deeper than any direct insult could have. My chest felt heavy now, but not in a heartbroken way. More like disbelief mixed with embarrassment. Like a quiet realization that I had never been the main focus for her at all. Just another option rotating through her screen. She noticed my silence finally, looked up longer this time. Asked if something was wrong. I didn't answer straight away. I just nodded slowly toward her phone like the reality was floating above the table for her to catch up with. She rolled her eyes slightly like I was overreacting, like this was something I should just accept as normal modern dating behavior. She said we were only hanging out anyway, that she didn't see the big deal. That stung more than the flirting itself. Because for me, walking here, sitting down, giving time, meant something. Even if small, even if casual, it was still a shared moment. For her, this was just filler while waiting for someone better to respond. She continued texting like nothing shifted, like my presence was optional scenery. And I realized then that staying another second would only make me feel smaller. So I stood up slowly, picked up my jacket, and placed a few notes on the table for my half. She barely looked up as I did it, still deep in conversation with her other reality. I didn't cause a scene, didn't argue, didn't explain. I just walked out of the lounge feeling like someone had flicked a switch on the world. The night air hit sharper than expected. The neon glow behind me faded, and suddenly everything felt painfully plain. I walked slowly at first, letting the distance build naturally between me and that toxic moment. My phone buzzed as I made my way down the street. A message from her. Like nothing had just happened. I didn't even open it. Just blocked and slid my phone straight back into my pocket. The weirdest part wasn't the betrayal. It was how calm she looked doing it. Like juggling people was her everyday routine. Like I was just another name floating in her list of options. and the idea that she probably moved on to another conversation the second I walked away. Yeah, that thought sat heavy. Some dates hurt because they build something then break it. This one hurt because it showed how little had existed from the start. I didn't even plan to meet him that day. It was one of those slow afternoons where you cancel plans in your head before they even exist, when your bed feels warmer than every outside option combined. But he kept messaging, soft and consistent, not pushy, just that gentle nudge kind of energy. Asking if I fancied a walk, said the weather looked decent for once and he didn't want to waste it. I stared at the screen for ages before finally typing yes, as if that small decision wasn't about to flip my whole mood upside down. We chose this calm park just outside town, the one with the long pathway that curves around the pond and ducks that always follow people for crumbs. I got there a little early, sat on a bench scrolling again through his profile, replaying our messages, convincing myself I was being dramatic for feeling slightly uneasy. He always spoke well, never rushed anything, never crossed lines. He felt normal, comforting even. When he arrived, he smiled like he'd known me forever. Not overexcited, not awkward, just oddly smooth. He wore a plain hoodie, clean shoes, and had that nice chilled posture that made everything feel less intense. We started walking straight away, side by side, the gravel crunching under our feet, birds chirping, kids running past on scooters. Everything around us felt safe and ordinary. But his face didn't fully match his photos. Not in a dramatic way, just subtle enough to make my brain quietly flag it. The smile shape, the angle of his eyes. It was like he looked similar, but not identical. I told myself it could be the lighting. People look different in real life. That's normal. He talked casually about random things, how he liked fresh air, how he needed breaks from screens, how he found dating apps exhausting. I nodded, listening, pretending the tiny mismatch feeling wasn't still sitting heavy in my chest. We reached the pond and slowed down a bit, ducks scattering slightly as we passed. He kept checking his phone now and then, not in a rude way, just casually like he was used to small interruptions. I didn't think too much of it until the screen briefly lit up, and I caught a glimpse of multiple different profile pics saved in his gallery. Felt weird. I asked jokingly why he had so many selfies and he laughed it off. Said he barely deletes anything. The way he shrugged made it clear he didn't want to dive into that topic further, so I let it go. Again. But the little doubts kept stacking quietly. About 20 minutes into the walk, 2 officers approached from the side of the path. They weren't running, just walking with purpose. Heads up, focused eyes. That serious presence that makes your body instantly straighten without even thinking. For a split second, I assumed they were just passing through. But they stopped right in front of us. They looked at him first, then at me, then back at him. Their expression was blank, unreadable, but heavy enough to shift the whole air around us. My heart started thudding, not because I thought I'd done anything wrong, but because you just know when something isn't casual anymore. One of them pulled out a device, checked a photo, then looked up again. Asked his name. He hesitated for half a second before answering. I swear that pause said more than any words could. They told him he matched someone currently under investigation for multiple fake profile scams and identity theft. That his face appeared across different accounts with different names, different backgrounds, different stories. They said he'd been using dating platforms to gain trust, pull private details, and use that information to impersonate people online. Everything around me felt dizzy all of a sudden. His calmness cracked. Not fully, but enough. His jaw tightened, his eyes flicking left and right like he was calculating something. I stood there silent, unable to fully process the weight of what they were saying. They asked for his phone, asked for ID, asked to check his bag. Every movement he made looked more defensive now, more guarded, like he knew exactly where this was heading. They pulled out screenshots of profiles, different names, different pictures, same face, his face, photographs I'd never seen before. But clearly him, under usernames that weren't his, bios that painted a whole fake lifestyle, fake jobs, fake locations, fake everything. One of them mentioned he had already been reported by several women who said their details had been used for purchases, scams, even fake job applications. Some had lost money. Some had nearly had their bank accounts locked. Someone else's life tangled because of him. And I had been walking next to him 5 minutes earlier thinking this could have turned into something nice. They told me he needed to come with them for further questioning. His voice raised slightly, trying to act confused, trying to make it seem like a misunderstanding, but they didn't let him step another inch away. When they placed the cuffs on him, something inside me went cold. The same hands that casually pointed at ducks earlier now restrained behind his back. His posture no longer relaxed. No more easy smile, just tension and quiet panic seeping through his body language. People nearby started slowing down, watching. Joggers passing, mums with prams, teenagers on bikes. Everyone catching little fragments of the situation and weaving their own guesses. I just stood there like I didn't know where my feet belonged anymore. One officer asked if I was okay and if I had met him through an app. I nodded and explained that I didn't know anything about this, that it was only a first meet. He reassured me I hadn't done anything wrong and they'd need a brief statement later for reference. As they walked him away toward the car park entrance, he glanced back briefly. Not in regret, not an apology. Just a quick, unreadable stare, like he was already thinking about the next person, the next profile, the next lie. And I felt this strange mix of nausea and relief. The park suddenly felt too open, too exposed. The same place that felt peaceful now felt contaminated by everything that just unfolded. I sat down slowly on a nearby bench, hands resting in my lap, heartbeat still heavy in my ears. My phone buzzed. His account still open. His smiling profile still online. Still pretending. Still charming. I reported it immediately, hands trembling slightly as I pressed block without hesitation. I stared out at the pond, watching the ducks glide across the water like nothing had changed. Like the world wasn't just casually revealing how broken some people could be. I kept replaying everything in my head. The slight delay before he said his name. The photos that didn't quite match. The odd feeling that I'd ignored because he sounded nice. And now knowing he probably stepped into that park wearing yet another borrowed identity, testing yet another story, collecting yet another set of details to twist into something dangerous later. It made me feel gross. Not because of him, but because of how close he got to entering my space, my trust, my routine. When I finally stood up and walked away, my steps felt heavier, slower, like the ground itself was still processing what had just happened. This wasn't a dramatic escape. No sprinting home. No grand realization speech. Just the uncomfortable truth settling quietly that some people aren't just liars. They're professional illusions. And the idea that I almost opened up to someone who didn't even know who he was pretending to be that day. Yeah, that stays with you longer than you ever expect. I don't even know why I trusted the vibe so fast, but something about the way she typed made it feel like we'd known each other longer than a screen and a few messages. She had that whole chilled energy online, like not trying too hard but still flirty enough to keep me hooked. We'd been chatting for nearly 2 weeks, not just surface stuff of it, either proper long talks that stretched past midnight, sharing random stories and small details about our days. She kept saying she liked how calm I was, how I didn't feel like the typical app guy, and I started believing maybe this one was different. We finally planned for me to come by her flat one evening. Nothing wild, just food and a movie, something low-key. She said she lived alone, small place but cozy, and preferred that over going out. I didn't question it. I shaved, changed outfits twice, sprayed way too much aftershave, then walked there with that nervous excitement you get before something you hope turns into more. When she opened the door, she looked exactly like her pics. Soft smile, messy hair tied up, oversized hoodie like she'd just thrown it on and didn't care. It felt natural straight away, like we'd skipped the awkward stage without even trying. She invited me in, took my jacket, showed me around casually like it was normal for me to be there. The flat was tidy but not perfect, the good kind of lived-in mess. Cups on the counter, shoes by the door, small touches that made it feel real. She said to make myself comfortable and offered me a drink. I sat down on the sofa while she went to the kitchen and I just looked around, trying not to overanalyze every detail I usually do. But something low-key caught my attention almost instantly. A second pair of trainers by the bedroom door, bigger than hers. Not feminine at all, just full-on man shoes sitting there like they belonged. I felt that little pinch of doubt but forced myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe her brother visited. Maybe a friend crashed. Could be anything. I didn't want to be that guy who assumed straight away. She came back with drinks like nothing was weird, sat close to me, started talking about random things again. How she hated her job. how she wanted to move somewhere quieter, how she wished dates felt more genuine. I listened, nodded, tried relaxing, but my eyes kept sneaking glances toward the hallway. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, like barely open, just enough for a thin line of darkness to peek through. I asked casually if she had a flatmate, and she laughed it off, said no, she preferred her space. Said she hated sharing. The way she said it felt quick, like she didn't want the topic hanging around too long. I tried to ignore the weird tension in my chest. We sat there watching something random on TV, our shoulders brushing slightly every now and then. It felt almost normal again. Almost. Then I heard it. A floorboard creaked from the bedroom. Not house-settling noise. Not building movement. A full-on shift like someone repositioned their weight. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent, forcing myself to stay calm, telling myself there was a logical explanation. She didn't move, though. Didn't react. Didn't even flinch. And that's what made it worse. Minutes later, another noise. This time more distinct, like fabric rubbing. Someone clearly moving in a space they thought was hidden. My eyes moved toward the hallway again, and her whole posture shifted slightly, tense but trying to hide it under a lazy smile. That's when the bedroom door suddenly opened, and a guy stepped out. Not timid, not confused, just straight up furious. His eyes locked on me first, then snapped to her. Everything about his face screamed betrayal, shock, anger, like he'd been sitting on that bed listening to our whole interaction. His hands were clenched tight like he was fighting the urge to throw something. I just sat there frozen, trying to understand the mess forming in front of me. He wasn't some random brother or guest. This was personal. Deep. Heavy. He started exposing everything right there without caring who heard. Said she'd been double dating both of us for weeks, sneaking around, telling each of us the same soft lies, promising exclusivity while switching between our messages like it was a game. He said he had been staying there more often lately, practically lived there, thinking things were serious between them. Only to realize tonight that my arrival wasn't just some surprise friend visit. His voice cracked with real frustration as he kept going, explaining how he'd already noticed changes in her, how she'd been dodging calls, hiding her phone, saying she was tired when she was actually on dates with someone else. Me. I felt this weird mix of embarrassment and anger rising fast, not at him, but at her, because suddenly everything lined up. The late replies, the vague stories, the last-minute changes, the overcompensation with sweetness. She sat there almost silent, biting her lip, looking between us like a trapped animal. Not denying it. Not owning up. Just trying to ride out the storm and see what damage control would look like. He pulled his phone out and scrolled through messages, showing me proof that hurt to see even though they technically weren't my messages. Long, affectionate texts, flirty inside jokes, the same pet names she used on me. It was like watching a mirror version of my own chat history. Weeks worth. She didn't just accidentally overlap a date or two. She played both sides carefully, keeping both of us thinking we were the only one. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal. It was the calculated calmness she had while doing it. Inviting me over while her actual boyfriend was in the bedroom like she didn't see us as real people at all. Things escalated fast after that. His anger boiled over, not violent but loud and raw. The kind of energy that fills every inch of the room. I stood up, heart racing, trying to calm the situation because it could easily flip into something worse. She tried brushing it off like it was just complicated and she hadn't meant for it to go like this, but that only made him more hurt. And honestly, it only made me feel more stupid for thinking this was the start of something genuine. He demanded answers. She kept giving half ones. I grabbed my jacket from the armchair without looking at her, barely able to make eye contact now. The whole situation made my skin crawl. I didn't want to be there another second, surrounded by lies that suddenly felt thick in the air. As I moved toward the door, he finally looked at me properly, not as a rival, but as another guy who had been fooled. There was this brief, unspoken understanding between us that she played us both. I stepped out into the hallway and the door shut behind me, but their voices still echoed faintly through the walls. Accusations, frustration, disbelief. Walking home felt strange, colder than before, quieter, but the night was processing what just happened with me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I refused to check it, already knowing it would be some rushed excuse or fake guilt trying to patch over the truth. I didn't want to hear it. When I finally got back, I tossed my shoes off and just stared at the ceiling, replaying her smile, her soft tone, the way she made everything sound sincere. All of it felt contaminated now. I blocked her without a second thought, removed the entire conversation like it never happened, even though the humiliation still sat heavy in my chest. It wasn't dramatic. No police, no screaming scene in public. Just a weird, painful realization that sometimes the biggest mess happens quietly inside someone else's home while you're sitting on their sofa believing a fake version of reality. And the craziest part is, if that guy hadn't walked out of that bedroom, I never would have known I was just another option being rotated through her phone. I should have clocked it from the second he suggested the place. Not a cafe, not a drive, but this weird late-night bowling and arcade spot that mostly smelled like cheap fries and energy drinks. I laughed it off thinking at least it was different. Something fun. Not another awkward sit and stare situation. I told myself it might actually be a decent night for once, even though my stomach felt slightly twisted while I got ready. His profile made him seem playful, confident, one of those guys who says he loves making people laugh. Lots of joking captions, loads of selfies with over-the-top facial expressions. I thought it was harmless, like annoying but entertaining. I turned up wearing simple stuff, nothing extra, just wanting to chill. He was already there when I walked in, leaning against a game machine like he was posing for content. Straight away, his energy felt loud. Not in a scary way, just a bit too much. Talking fast, laughing at his own jokes, scanning the room like he was always aware of who was watching. He hugged me without asking, which already made me tense slightly, but I brushed it off. We got our bowling shoes and started a game. At first, it was normal. Us teasing each other, laughing when the ball rolled straight into the gutter, joking about who had zero aim. But every few minutes, I'd notice him adjusting his phone, angling it slightly, laying it down on the table but pointing toward me, picking it up and pretending to scroll. I didn't want to assume the worst, but it bugged me. You know, when something tiny keeps poking at the back of your brain and you can't fully relax. That was me the whole time. Every time I turned around to grab the ball, his phone would lift a little. Not enough to scream red flag, but enough to whisper it. I asked once if he was waiting on someone, and he just laughed and said he was checking notifications. Rushed it off with some dramatic comment about how popular he was. I laughed along, but my eyes never stopped watching the phone again after that. Halfway through the game, he insisted we move to the seating area near the arcade. The lights there were brighter and louder, filled with flashing screens and background noise. He sat opposite me and placed his phone upright against a napkin holder, the camera lens facing my direction. This time I didn't ignore it. I leaned forward slightly and tilted my head, trying to see if a screen reflection gave anything away. He noticed me looking and casually slid it down like it was nothing. Said he just liked putting it there. I didn't believe him. My chest started to feel tight, that slow creeping realization that I was being turned into something I never agreed to be. But I kept calm, pretending I trusted him just enough to not cause a scene yet. Then he stood up and said he wanted to grab a drink from the bar and told me to wait. I watched him walk off, but my eyes stayed stuck to the phone he carelessly left on the table. It buzzed. I know I shouldn't have, but I glanced at the screen without touching it, just enough to see the lock screen preview. Prank idea working perfectly. She thinks it's a proper date. This is gonna bang. My heart slammed. I picked the phone up immediately, hands slightly shaking, and unlocked it using the face recognition feature that still worked because it was angled perfectly. The screen opened to a recording app, the red dot blinking, timer counting. It was recording me. There were other files too. Thumbnail after thumbnail of girls sitting across from him, confused, embarrassed, uncomfortable. Title saved in his notes section reading stuff like "Date who thinks she found love" and "Exposing desperate girls on apps." I felt sick. There were group messages as well with his mates hyping him up, telling him to keep it going, saying it would go viral. Comments about how funny it was watching girls open up while they secretly filmed the whole thing. This wasn't just some silly joke. This was calculated, humiliating, planned, and he chose me for content. My hands went cold. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just felt this wave of anger mixed with disgust. He walked back toward the table smiling, holding 2 drinks like everything was normal. Like I wasn't staring at footage of myself already being prepped for mocking strangers online. When he saw his phone in my hand, his face changed instantly. The performance switched off in seconds. His smile dropped, eyes wide, jaw stiff. He started moving toward me quickly, arms reaching out, trying to grab it back. That's when my voice finally came out loud enough for nearby people to turn around. I handed the phone straight to the security staff member who had already started walking over because of the sudden noise. They took one look at the screen and then at him, and everything clicked instantly. He panicked, trying to explain, trying to snatch the phone, fumbling over words that no longer made sense. His whole cool persona collapsed right in front of everyone. The confident, jokey guy turned into this desperate mess trying to delete evidence in real time. Security blocked him, pushed him back, told him to step away. He kept reaching, trying to swipe, trying to remove files while shouting that it was just a joke for his channel. Just a prank. Nothing serious. But the room didn't see it like that. People stared, whispered. Phone came out, not for his content this time, but for their own. Someone asked if I was okay, and I nodded even though my pulse was still racing. Security escorted him toward the exit while he twisted heavy against their grip, still trying to get to the phone, like deleting the footage would magically erase what he did. I stood there frozen, holding his phone like a piece of absolute filth. The staff told me it would be handled by management and likely the police. I agreed. Anything to get it out of my sight. After they dragged him out, the noise level slowly returned to normal, but nothing felt normal to me. Every laugh in the building now grated against my skin. Every reflection caught my face and reminded me I had almost been turned into someone's entertainment. I stepped outside for air. The night felt colder there, sharper. I kept replaying the way he smiled at me earlier, like all of it was just part of the script he rehearsed 100 times. How many other girls had he done this to? How many were already floating around online confused and humiliated? I went home and scrolled through the app, my hand hovering over delete for longer than usual. His profile was still up, still smiling, still claiming to want something real. I reported it, blocked it, and then sat on my bed staring at the wall in silence. My phone kept buzzing with messages from the place updating me about the complaint process, but I barely cared. All I could think about was how easy it is for someone to twist a simple night into content without consent. That wasn't about fun. It wasn't about humor. It was about control, humiliation, and ego. I didn't learn anything poetic from it. No big emotional growth moment. Just the raw realization that some people don't see others as human, just as views, clicks, laughs. And the idea of going on another date right now, that feels like a joke I'm nowhere near ready to laugh at. The night already felt weird before I even got in that car, like the kind of uneasy vibe you ignore because you just want something exciting to happen. I had been scrolling dating apps half bored, half hopeful, and when her message popped up asking if I wanted a late night drive, it felt risky in a fun way. Not a big deal, just cruising, talking, music, nothing deep. I told myself it was harmless and that I deserved a little break from my usual boring routine. She pulled up outside my flatway later than we said, headlights glowing pale against the wet road. The car looked clean, too clean for something that had supposedly been used all day. Shiny black paint, tinted windows, that faint smell of new leather when I stepped inside. I remember thinking she must be doing pretty well for herself to be driving something like that. She smiled, said sorry for being late, and I brushed it off because her energy was easy and warm. We started moving almost straight away, windows slightly cracked, cool air brushing against my face. The streets were quiet in that peaceful but eerie way, like even the traffic lights were half asleep. She talked about random stuff, playlists, bad dates, how she hated sitting still. I nodded, laughed, tried to keep the mood light even though something just didn't fully sit right. She kept taking strange turns though, not heading anywhere specific. No destination, no point, just looping through dark estates and empty retail parks. I asked casually where we were going, but she only shrugged and said she just liked driving at night, said it made her feel free. I tried to match the vibe, but I kept noticing little things piling up like puzzle pieces I didn't want to look at properly. The glove box kept rattling slightly with every bump, like something loose inside. The dashboard lights flickered for a split second before settling again. She held the steering wheel tight, not in a nervous way, but more like someone guarding it. The car smelled faintly of a sharp cleaner, like it had been wiped down recently, not the normal smell of someone's everyday mess. Then I spotted it. Around the center console, scratched slightly into the plastic, was a faint number sequence. Not like normal wear and tear, more like someone had tried to mark it. I stared at it too long for comfort, heart ticking a little faster. When I asked what that was, she laughed and brushed it off, said it was probably from the old owner. Something about the way she said it felt rushed. We passed by a petrol station, and for a moment the bright lights reflected clearly over the bonnet. That's when I noticed the plate. Something about it looked off. I couldn't explain why, but it didn't sit right in my head. I tried convincing myself I was overthinking, but the unease wouldn't go. She parked briefly at the side of a quiet road while checking her phone. I used that moment to quickly search the plate online just out of curiosity. I didn't even expect anything. I genuinely thought it would show normal vehicle details and that would be the end of it. But it didn't. The search result flashed up with warnings. Reported missing. Vehicle taken from a private driveway 2 nights ago. Police case opened. Reward offered. $2,000. My stomach dropped heavy like someone had just switched off the world underneath me. I stared at my phone screen again to make sure I wasn't misreading it. It didn't change. Same words, same report. Before I could even process what to do with that information, blue and red lights suddenly exploded behind us, painting the inside of the car in frantic color. My heart thudded so hard it felt like it was echoing against my ribs. Sirens cut through the silence in sharp bursts. She swore under her breath, hands moving fast now, too fast. The calm girl from earlier was gone, replaced with stiff shoulders and frantic glances in the mirror. She tried to keep driving, but the police car stayed right behind, lights swallowing the darkness. Every thought started racing at once. How did I end up here? What was she thinking? Did she know this car was stolen, or had she just been reckless? I wanted to jump out, disappear, rewind the entire night. The car slowed, tires crunching softly against the gravel as she pulled over. Her breathing sounded heavier now, more ragged, like reality had finally caught her. The siren cut, but the lights kept spinning, reflecting over her face, her tense jaw, the tight way she gripped the wheel. Officers approached, slow and alert. I watched their shapes through the mirror, my pulse loud in my ears. I said nothing, just sat frozen, hands resting awkwardly on my thighs like I was part of the scene I never signed up for. They asked for details, her license, the car papers, everything she should have had ready. Her movements went clumsy, fumbling through the messy compartment, pulling out random receipts and old wrappers like that somehow helped. Nothing matched, nothing lined up. One officer shone a light directly at the dashboard, then the plate, then at her. His expression shifted instantly, the kind of look people get when they already know the truth and are just confirming it. She tried to act calm, like it was all a misunderstanding, but the tension gave her away. Within minutes, they stepped her out of the car. Cuffs clicked around her wrists, metal sharp against the night air. I just sat there, trapped in shock, trying to understand how a simple drive date turned into this disaster. The officers asked me who I was, how I knew her, where I was going. I answered everything honestly, voice low and shaky. They checked my phone, my messages, the dating app conversation. I watched their eyes scan the screen, making sure I wasn't part of whatever situation she had pulled me into. I felt exposed and stupid all at once. Apparently the car had been lifted straight off someone's driveway while they slept. Keys taken from their porch, cameras caught only a shadowy figure. She had been spotted earlier that night driving it through a different area, which already put her on their radar. I was just unlucky enough to be the passenger when it finally caught up. When they removed her completely and I stepped back onto the pavement, the cold air hit my face like reality finally waking me up. The road felt emptier than before, like the darkness had eyes. One officer told me I was free to go after confirming I had no connection to the theft. I nodded, still struggling to believe how quickly everything spiraled. I watched as they towed the car away, sirens dying into the distance like some twisted late-night soundtrack. Walking home felt surreal. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every passing car suddenly felt dangerous. I kept replaying the moment I Googled the plate. That instant my whole night flipped. She messaged me later on the app from another account, saying it wasn't her fault, saying she could borrow the car from a friend. But I knew better. The story didn't fit. Nothing about her panic felt accidental. I blocked the account without thinking twice. Back in my room, staring at the ceiling, I realized how close I came to being tangled in something darker. Stolen cars, police involvement, legal trouble, all because I wanted a bit of spontaneity on a boring evening. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't thrilling, It was just a harsh reminder that not every fun idea comes wrapped in good intentions. Sometimes it comes with sirens and flashing lights, and a night that sticks to your brain longer than you ever wanted. The weird part is I almost canceled. I remember standing in my tiny room, hair still half damp, scrolling through his profile again and again, trying to figure out if my gut was being dramatic or if something was just off. On the screen, he looked harmless. Soft smile, soft eyes, a bit too polished but still normal. The type that said he volunteered, had a dog, called his mum often. The type you feel silly doubting. So I grabbed my bag, sprayed way too much body mist, and told myself to stop overthinking like I always do. The cafe we picked was one of those quiet ones tucked behind a row of charity shops and nail salons. Not a chain, but a place with mismatched mugs and dusty plants near the window. I liked that. It felt safe. The kind of place where old couples sit and teenagers do homework while whispering about someone they hate. I got there early because I hate being the one who turns up late and looks messy. I ordered a vanilla latte and picked the chair closest to the wall just so I wasn't too exposed. He walked in about 5 minutes later. Tall, clean, smelling way too good for a casual daytime meetup. Light jacket, neat trainers, phone already in his hand like it was glued there. He smiled when he saw me and I smiled back, that awkward type where you are trying not to look too eager. No hugging, just that quick wave and sit down moment where both of you pretend everything feels natural even though it really does not. At first, nothing was wrong. It was just the usual. How was traffic? How long had I been on the app? What do I do? Where do I live? I could tell he liked talking about himself a lot, but I let it slide. His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic, like he read plenty of self-help blogs on how to sound confident. He kept checking his phone, though. Not casual checking, intense checking, like someone was waiting on him every second. I tried to ignore it. People are busy, right? Maybe his job was demanding. He mentioned he worked in online client support, which sounded vague but modern enough to be believable. He said he helped people sort their accounts and fix payment problems. I nodded like I had any idea what that even meant. He seemed proud of it, said he liked helping people feel secure. That phrase stuck with me in a weird way. When a server came over to take his order, he barely looked up, still tabbing the screen. He went for a flat white and a croissant like he had already planned this whole thing. That's when I noticed how fast he typed. His fingers moved like he was in a rush, like something urgent was happening, but he didn't want me to ask. I started reading his body instead of listening to his words, the stiff shoulders, the way his jaw tightened every time his phone buzzed, the small fake laugh he let out when I tried to keep the mood light. He kept sliding the phone slightly away from me too, like he was worried I would catch a glance of something he didn't want seen. Then everything flipped so fast I thought my head would spin off. The cafe door swung open hard, the little bell above it ringing way louder than before. 3 people walked in that did not match the vibe at all. No casual clothes, no relaxed faces, sharp eyes, focused, scanning. 2 men and a woman, and none of them smiled. There was something heavy in the air instantly, like the whole room realized something big was about to go down. They didn't even look at me. Not once. Their eyes locked onto him like they had been tracking him for ages. Within seconds, they were at our table. He froze, like fully froze. No smooth voice, no confidence, no fake charm. Just pale skin, lips pressed tight, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. When they grabbed his arms and told him to put the phone down, his whole act just crumbled. The croissant barely touched the plate as his hand shook. The rest of the cafe went silent. Cups paused mid-air. Whispers started spreading like wildfire. I just sat there, heart racing, unable to move. I didn't even understand what was happening yet, only that suddenly I was sharing a table with someone being taken down like a criminal. They said his name, not the one he gave me. A completely different one. Then they mentioned online scam, targeting elderly women, draining their savings pretending to be technical support, convincing them their accounts were at risk. All while sitting across from me like he was just another normal guy on a date. My stomach twisted hard. Everything he told me felt fake now. His job. His smooth way of speaking. The constant phone tapping. The way he said he helped people feel secure. It all turned ugly and dark in seconds. Apparently, he had been reported by multiple families after their mums and grandmas lost thousands. Actual thousands. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. Money meant for bills, food, grandkids. I heard one of the officers mention some of them were still waiting for refunds that would never come. He tried to stand up, but they pinned him back down, cuffs clinking like something straight out of a show. But this was real and close and happening right in front of me. I couldn't even look at him properly. I just kept staring at the table like my coffee might suddenly explain everything. He never once looked embarrassed. Scared, yes, but mostly angry, like the world had done him wrong instead of the other way around. His phone kept lighting up on the table even as they dragged him away. Messages, calls, notifications from whatever mess of a system he had built. People started whispering more openly now. Some glances came towards me, the classic pity ones. Poor girl, wrong guy, unlucky. I felt like my whole body was buzzing but numb at the same time, as it wasn't really me sitting there. A staff member came over and asked if I was okay. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice not to shake. My latte was cold now, but I still held on to it like it was the only normal thing left in the room. Once they pulled him out, the cafe slowly tried to go back to normal, but nothing felt normal. The door closed, the bell rang again, and the quiet returned, but heavier, awkward, strange, like the air remembered what just happened. I sat there way longer than I needed to, just replaying everything in my head. Every tiny detail suddenly meant something else. The constant phone use, the way he spoke about helping people, the pride in his voice. It wasn't pride. It was control. It was manipulation. It was someone who knew exactly how to twist reality for his own benefit. I left without finishing my drink, stepped back onto the pavement, feeling like I had walked straight out of a scene I never signed up for. My hands were still trembling slightly, even as I tried to scroll my phone to look busy. On the app, his profile was still there, smiling, friendly, normal. I reported it immediately and blocked it right after. The thought that he probably had 10 more accounts ready made my skin crawl. Later that night, as I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, it kept hitting me how close I had been to something worse. What if he had chosen a more private spot? What if he hadn't been caught that day? What if I had trusted him just a little more? It wasn't just a bad date. It was walking straight into someone's real-life mess and barely making it out untouched. A reminder that behind charming profiles, perfect selfies, and casual flirty lines, there can be things you would never see coming. And the wild part is, tomorrow someone else would probably match with him not knowing everything I saw. Not knowing the cuffs. Not knowing the scam. Not knowing the way his whole fake world collapsed over a flat white and a crescent.